Leticia and I have the same announcement.
You can go ahead. Go ahead, David. It probably is the same one.
Yeah, tomorrow evening, the Permit Parking Task Force is holding a neighborhood virtual gathering for residents of the Tree Street. Although we want to encourage folks who live across Nassau Street in the Murray Place, Aiken, Patton Ave neighborhood, because they are a part of the plan to attend. So that's at 7 p.m. tomorrow, and the login information can be found on the municipal web calendar on the website.
Great, thank you. And Councilman Fraga, did you have any additional announcements?
No, it was the same, but I want to add that it's not just for residents. Also, merchants or business owners in that neighborhood are also welcome to join and provide input.
Okay, great, thank you. And Councilman Niedergang?
Just one quick announcement. Sustainable Princeton will be hosting a recycling event where they'll be collecting styrofoam from all your holiday gift packing and gift receiving. So that will be on Saturday, January 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Monument Hall. So just make a note of that on your calendar.
Great, thank you. Mr. Williamson?
Mayor, I'm not sure if this is an announcement or report, but I just wanted to point out that Community Pass, which is the online registration vendor we use for the community park pool. Well, in their industry publication last month, they actually highlighted Princeton's efforts to keep community park pool open and to operate safely in the COVID environment. So I just wanted to give a public shout out to Ben Stentz, Evan Moorhead, and the other folks over at Princeton Recreation about that.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Pern-Lambros, do you have any announcements?
This is one that could be a report or announcement, but it's a couple of shout outs. So let me just do it now. First of all, I want to thank the Shade Tree Commission for their generous donation of the 35 live evergreen trees that are placed on Nassau and Witherspoon Streets. This initiative, sprucing up the Central Business District, was started with the idea from Mayor Lempert. Thank you very much for this wonderful idea. And the kind donation of the trees, which will be planted after the holidays. All 35 trees, I'm happy to announce, have been spoken for and are being decorated by businesses and nonprofit organizations. And the Town Topics is running a Best Decorated Tree contest. And the winner will receive a free ad space. And I'd also like to do another shout out to our wonderful DPW, our Public Works crew, Dan Van Mater, and our arborist Taylor Supporter for all of their hard work on putting this initiative together. It's been a real fabulous community effort. And I'd like to just also call attention to the Winter Village, which is underway throughout this Central Business District. The Arts Council, in cooperation with the Economic Development Committee, Dina Shaw in particular, the Princeton Merchants Association, and the university, Aaron Metro, have all come together and created this wonderful 4 chalets with local artists and vendors. And it's been, of course, the municipalities backing and doing this. So I just wanted to say thank you and a big shout out to everyone who's helping, try and pull together a real solid shop and eat local campaign during this pandemic holiday that we are trying to do our best to help. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't know if anybody else is getting some feedback also. But anyways, okay, well, thank you for that report. And Councilman Sachs, any announcements?
No announcements tonight. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. I just had a few announcements. The first is that council has a pretty jam-packed schedule December. So we're meeting tonight. We have another council meeting on the 14th. And then we're meeting again on Monday, the 21st. And then we have a wrap-up meeting the week after that. So stay tuned by looking at the website for agendas and materials. And on that note too, if all goes as planned, we will be launching the new improved website at some point this week. So definitely keep your eye out for the address will be the same, princetonnj.gov. But we hope that you'll find that the new design is easier to use and more attractive. The other announcements, I know we have a lot of merchants on the call tonight because of the Witherspoon Street traffic report and ordinance. And I did want to mention that the New Jersey EDC is having a program where you can apply and get pretty significant discounts on PPE that you have to purchase, personal protective equipment, up to 70% off if you're a business with 100 employees or fewer. So there's an email that went out or you could go directly to the NJEDC website for information on that. The deadline to apply is this Thursday. So if you think you qualify and there's a need, please make sure you look into that because there's some savings there for you. In addition, the Mercer County is offering a couple pop-up vaccine, testing clinics. That would be nice if it were vaccine clinic, but testing clinics this week. And they also have a saliva test that you can order that will be mailed to you and you can mail it back. So if you want the convenience of getting tested at home, you can go to the Mercer Cares website and find information about that. And finally on vaccines, the chair of the Princeton Board of Health, Dr. George DiFernando, is going to be holding a vaccine town hall to answer questions and give information about where we are with vaccines. And that's going to be on Wednesday, December 16th at 1 p.m. It's a virtual town hall, and you can go to the Senior Resource Center website to find out more about that and to register. Are there any staff announcements? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to public comments that are for items that are not already on the agenda. And if you would like to make a comment, I can't see you, so you'll need to raise your virtual hand. So it depending on what your server is. I see somebody's already raised their hand. So we'll start with Eunice Wong.
Hi.
You should be able to speak. Hi.
Is there a way to turn my video on or not?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, no problem. All right, so good evening, Council. My name is Eunice Wong. I live on Moore Street, and I've been a Princeton resident for almost 14 years. I really love this town. And I'm here to ask you to please make a leaf blower ordinance a priority in 2021. With more people working and schooling from home, this is a huge issue. I actually started an online petition last night at 11 p.m. In less than 24 hours, it now has over 215 signatures. So personally, I'm a professional actor. Since the pandemic closed down the theaters, I've been recording audiobooks from my home studio, which includes a professional double-walled isolation booth. But even inside my booth, which is inside my house, I can't count on a good day's work because of the leaf blowers. I can't predict when they will start or stop, and they go on for hours. I literally can't do the work that brings in my income until it gets dark. And my husband is a writer, and he has a similar problem with the noise. It's invasive and frustrating and a serious problem. In addition, the environmental cost of gas-powered leaf blowers is appalling. The New York Times reported that 30 minutes of using a gas-powered two-stroke engine leaf blower, which is the most popular kind, produces the same hydrocarbon emissions as driving a pickup truck from Maplewood, New Jersey to Juneau, Alaska. That's 30 minutes of using a leaf blower, and that's unacceptable. These engines were phased out of use in cars because they're so dirty, and yet leaf blowers are going almost continuously for entire workdays. My kids are learning from home due to the pandemic, like many of their friends. The roar of the leaf blowers is extremely disruptive. Some of my friends have had to buy noise-canceling headphones for their kids. In Munich, a study found that after a new airport opened, stress hormone levels soared in kids. Their epinephrine levels rose almost 50%, norepinephrine more than doubled, and their systolic blood pressure went up 5 points on average. Gas blowers, they create high levels of formaldehyde, benzene, smog-forming chemicals, which can cause dizziness, headaches, asthma attacks, heart and lung disease, cancer, dementia. They create clouds of industrial pollutants, pollen, fertilizer, pesticides, dried animal feces, and demolition debris like lead and asbestos. So this creates serious health consequences for both the community and the landscape workers. And the thing is, it's unnecessary. 60 cities in California have banned leaf blowers, along with over 200 towns and cities throughout the country, which have either bans or regulations, like strict regulations, including Montclair and Maplewood, New Jersey. So I just want to say Princeton is a leader in so many fields. So let's stand with these other cities in reducing one of the greatest sources of pollution and health risks in our community. So again, I ask you to please make a leaf blower ordinance a priority in 2021. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. And I'm just going to read one of the emails that we received ahead of the meeting, since it's on the same topic. This is from Phyllis Tuttlebaum, 47 Hawthorne Avenue. 5 years ago, my husband, Tony Lunn, and I co-founded an organization called Quiet Princeton to try to decrease the deafening noise caused by gas-powered leaf blowers. We have researched leaf blowers and have learned that gas-powered leaf blowers also cause an enormous amount of pollution. Their noise and pollution make them a serious health hazard for Princeton residents and for the landscape workers who use them all day. I'm commenting now in order to alert Princeton Council to a major development in how the Princeton public regards leaf blowers. For 4 years, Quiet Princeton had only a modest membership. Suddenly, in the last 8 months, our membership has ballooned. People have been emailing and phoning Quiet Princeton, urging us to do something about leaf blowers. A Princeton resident put a single post about leaf blowers in the social media called Nextdoor and received 40 responses. The reason for this great increase in public concern about leaf blowers is obvious. Since the COVID-19 restrictions started in March, people are working at home and children are doing online school at home. Their work and school are interrupted for hours at a time by the noise of leaf blowers. When parents and children go outside, they encounter noxious fumes from leaf blowers. Many Princeton residents are also concerned about the landscape workers who are being subjected to toxic fumes and deafening noise. They want to make sure that landscape workers are not harmed by any new controls on leaf blower use. Most of Quiet Princeton's new members are asking for an ordinance. Quiet Princeton favors a dual approach. One, Sustainable Princeton's plan. It includes assisting landscapers to transition to battery-operated leaf blowers, which cause less noise and no pollution, plus education of landscapers and the public about sustainable methods of lawn maintenance. And two, a leaf blower ordinance. Quiet Princeton believes that a combination of these two approaches will work significantly better than either approach would on its own. I urge Princeton Council to make a leaf blower ordinance a high priority in 2021. And I just wanted to respond. Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman Niedergang.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted Eunice and Phyllis, thank you for your comments. This is something that the Environmental Commission and Sustainable Princeton is very concerned about. As Phyllis noted in her email, the Environmental Commission and Sustainable Princeton will be working with landscapers to try to find out about the methods that they do use and how we can help them transition to something that's less harmful to themselves, to the environment, and less disturbing to our residents. So I think this is something that, I think I speak for all members of council in saying that this has become a really serious issue about which we've received a lot of complaints over the last 6 months or so. And it's something I personally am really hoping that we move forward with next year. And I think it needs to be done, as again, Phyllis noted in her email, with a lens of social justice and social equity, as well as environmental concerns and protecting the health of the people who do the work and the sanity of those who listen to the leaf blowers. So thanks.
Thanks, Councilwoman. And I also just wanted to put a plug in for Sustainable Princeton has some information on the Leave the Leaves campaign. So there's sort of a larger issue here with leaves being actually a pretty wonderful natural resource that falls from the trees that's great for your soil. And there are a lot of things you can do to keep those leaves on your property to help with flood control and to help with just return nutrients to your soil. So take a look at the Sustainable Princeton website in the interim too for things you can do with your leaves besides putting them on the curb. Yeah, Mr. Cohen?
And I'll just add on to that, that from the standpoint of cost for the Department of Public Works, which spends an awful lot of taxpayer dollars collecting leaves that have been put at the curb, and also from the standpoint of public safety for people who ride their bicycles and are often forced out into the travel lane by piles of leaves in the road, that there are a lot of great reasons for checking out the information that Mayor Lempert was just referring to about leaving the leaves. So even better than an electric leaf blower is leaving them on your property. It's a precious resource and it's good for the community.
All right, thank you. I wanted to just see if there are any other comments from anybody who's tuning in for anything that's not already on tonight's agenda. And if you have a comment, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, so I'm going to close public comment and we'll move on to reports, and like to just show of hands from council if anybody has a report for this evening. We'll start with Council President Cohen.
Thank you. Very, very brief. I just want to let folks know that the Greater Mercer TMA, in partnership with the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, did a presentation this morning to the Traffic Safety Committee about Vision Zero. It was similar to the presentation that council heard a few meetings ago, and traffic safety was really quite receptive. So we're probably going to be coming in January with a resolution to establish a task force to look into what Vision Zero as applied specifically in Princeton would look like. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councilman Fraga?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know you already announced it on your newsletter from last week. I believe it was last week, but I wanted to mention again that Princeton once again received a perfect score on the Municipal Equality Index, MEI scorecard. And I want to commend or thank Civil Rights Commissioner Nick DiDomicio, who actually put in a lot of the work in doing the research and filling out the report for the scorecard in order for us to be able to again receive a perfect score.
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Niedergang, did you have a report?
Yes, just a couple of things, Mayor. Thanks. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about what the Public Works Committee is doing. Aside from talking about gas-powered leaf blowers, we're talking about moving forward with an energy audit of our municipal buildings, which we hope to move forward with next year. Talking about where our first municipal electric vehicle charging stations will be placed. And also reviewed many engineering projects that will be starting up or continuing in 2021. So it's going to be a busy year there. And wanted to just say a little bit about the Sewer Operating Committee, which also met recently. We have a great new sewer engineer who's really taking a lot of initiative and working with the sewer crew to keep down what's called in the business I&I, which is infiltration and inflow. And the more groundwater we have coming into our sewer system, the more we're paying at our sewer operating plant to clean water that is already clean. So the benefits of keeping that groundwater, that clean water out of our sanitary sewer are really great in terms of the strain it puts on the whole system to have this extraneous flow, and in terms of us saving money because of the amount of volume that we're delivering to our River Road plant. So they're continuing to work on that, and I hope there'll be some new sewer projects that continued into 2021. And finally, just wanted, this is a little bit late in announcing, but the Princeton Senior Resource Center has purchased a site at Porth Farm Road in order to increase their ability to present programs there. So that will be a combination of programming space and administrative space. And for the time being, they'll continue to use the Suzanne Patterson Center as well. But anyway, that's a really big step for them that they've been talking about for a few years. So just wanted to make that as an announcement. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any other reports? Mr. DeShield?
Report to council that on December 2nd, we held sale for $24 million. We got excellent results from that bond sale. We actually sold bonds to Morgan Stanley at a rate of 1.018. And that's really, we've been able to sustain that with our great financial, what we've done financially in the municipality. And I just want to thank the finance office and Sandy Webb for all the work she's done on that bond sale.
Great, thank you. Are there any other staff reports? Okay. That's great. Okay, so I was just going to mention that I've been working with the Affordable Housing Department on the finalizing the community development based grant money projects that council had a report on a couple months ago. And those contracts are going to be coming to council on the 14th. So one of them is for rental assistance, which is so badly needed right now. And the other is a program to bring free Wi-Fi to many of our affordable housing developments, which is also a really exciting project. So there'll be more information on both of those contracts at the meeting on the 14th. Okay, so if there are no more reports, then we'll move on to tonight's work session. And before we do that, just to make this agenda flow a little more sensibly, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move up the ordinance introduction, ordinance 2020-51, which is the ordinance regarding traffic movements on Witherspoon, so that we can take that up directly following the work session. Is there a motion to amend the agenda? Moved by Mr. Cohen and seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll start with the work session, and just to explain the process of how this is going to work tonight, because I know we have a lot of folks on the call. We'll hear the report from our engineer, Deanna Stockton, and our traffic consultant, Heather Balgowin, and then we will talk about the ordinance that's up for introduction tonight, and we will entertain if there's public comment on it tonight. Happy to hear that tonight, and then if it is successfully introduced tonight, there'll be another opportunity to make comments at the public hearing on December 21st. But we'll start with the work session and wanted to turn it over to our engineer, Deanna Stockton.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council and Princeton residents and business owners.
Deanna, can you get closer to your computer because you're quiet? Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. How's this? Not much better.
Still quiet.
All right, I'll try to shout. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to share my screen. I have a short presentation that gives a little bit of history of the project, and then also we'll jump right into the traffic study that was prepared by McMahon Associates. So with that, let me make sure this moves. Okay, so Witherspoon Street. We've seen this if you've attended my meetings in the past about Witherspoon Street. This was the pre-COVID existing conditions that very clearly shows that a majority of the public space on Witherspoon Street is allocated to motor vehicles, whether it's motor vehicle movements or parking. And as I note in my memo, the municipality typically touches a road for a major reconstruction project every 25 to 30 years. And so this is our time to work on Witherspoon Street. When I started in the township in 2000, Witherspoon Street in the township was under review for a big capital project, and now we are 20 years later, and now working on this section up by Nassau Street. So our current project limits, for which we have funding from municipal funds as well as the state municipal aid program, is from Nassau Street to Green Street. A majority of our crashes in this corridor are related to parking, either people that are exiting a parking space and hitting the car that's parked near them, or entering or hitting the car in the travel lane next to them. And it's pretty evenly split in both directions. So when we undertook our community engagement process, we're really looking at what can we do to preserve and enhance this main economic area of downtown Princeton, while preserving what's good about it and then finding healthy, safe, and equitable improvements that can benefit the entire community. So with that, we started our public feedback or our public engagement at a meeting in February 2020. A lot of comments came in about drainage, parking, transit, landscaping. The list is long: safety, wayfinding, street lights, outdoor dining, ability to close the road and have car-free weekends. So there's a lot of information that we received, and it really was identifying to us that some sort of a major shift of resource allocation was needed so that it wasn't overly skewed for motor vehicle travel and parking. And with that, we started looking at the alternatives, and the alternatives that are now included in this traffic study are the two-way operation, a one-way operation northbound, a one-way operation southbound, and then a full closure for a pedestrian plaza. Unfortunately, or fortunately, with the impacts of COVID, we had the opportunity to do an experiment on one of those options, one of those alternatives. And we understand that traffic volumes and traffic patterns are nowhere near the pre-COVID conditions. But it gave us an opportunity, and for the public to have an opportunity to see another view of Witherspoon Street. So we worked with McMahon Associates to conduct a traffic study, and just here's another view of it. So if you look at the pre-COVID condition on the top part of the slide, you'll see that a lot of the area was dedicated to vehicles. And with COVID, we almost go in the opposite direction where we skew over to those pedestrian uses, which makes sense, right? We were trying to give the social distancing space as well as assisting the businesses with outdoor dining operations. And so, like I said, with that, with the alternatives that we came up with, we worked with McMahon Associates to do a traffic study. Heather Balgowan has joined us as well. She's going to take over the next few slides. But Heather, if you wouldn't mind going into a little bit of a discussion about the traffic data that was used, so that people can understand that these considerations and analyses were not based on the COVID volumes and patterns, but on pre-COVID conditions.
Correct. So the basis of our analysis is obviously traffic volumes, and we didn't want to use volumes from 2020 because, like Deanna said, they're extremely low, the patterns are different, and the traffic volumes are significantly lower. So we were able to obtain traffic volumes in the area, in the study area, from the years 2018 and 2019. So we utilized those volumes as our base volumes to analyze the 4 different alternatives that Deanna had spoke about. So these are conservative volumes, they're pre-COVID, and they're for when Princeton is thriving, you know, with the retail and the residents and the businesses in the area. And also the analysis takes into account pedestrian volumes and the conflicts happening as they cross the street as well. So we also had pedestrian volumes that were incorporated into the analysis. So we had studied 4 different alternatives that Deanna had said. Alternative A is 2-way, which is your pre-COVID condition. We had alternative B and C, which was converting Witherspoon one-way northbound and one-way southbound. And alternative D was just completely closing the street to vehicles, only allowing pedestrian access. Our study considered multiple different factors, which you can see on the screen: access to parking garages, pedestrian accessibility, bicycles, vehicle access to properties along Witherspoon and the surrounding area, transit operations, truck deliveries, EMS, and then obviously traffic operations. Deanna, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so in the report, which everyone has, we put together 4 different tables, which shows the overall level of service and delay at the 12 study area intersections. And it was a comparison of all the different alternatives. And this is overall. So this is every movement at the intersection, every movement, every approach averaged together. So this is just how each intersection overall would operate depending on the different alternatives. We also put in there in alternative B and C, there's additional mitigation measures that would have to be implemented in order for these one-way alternatives to work, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But you can see, especially at Nassau and Vandeventer, the mitigation measures help the intersection significantly. And I'll go into what mitigation members were recommending on the next slide. So this is for alternative B, which is converting Witherspoon one way in the northbound direction. First, if you look at Chambers Street, because a lot of all of the southbound traffic that was traveling along Witherspoon would have to get redistributed, the 2 places primarily that they would be redistributed to would be Chambers Street, which is stop controlled, as well as Vandeventer, which is the signalized intersection. Both the analysis results show that both intersections would fail given the amount of volumes that would have to be redistributed. So our mitigation measures that we would implement at Chambers would be restricting the left turns from Chambers onto Nassau Street at all times. Right now, there is a restriction in place from 4 to 6 p.m., which is what we call the commuter peak period in the evening. Due to the amount of left turns that would utilize Chambers, we would recommend, for safety reasons as well, because the amount of traffic on Nassau is so high and this is stop controlled. So the vehicles have to wait for a gap in traffic to safely enter Nassau Street. We recommend restricting left turns at all times here. The improvements that would be implemented at Witherspoon and Nassau, besides obviously the one-way conversion, would be a couple additional improvements that are currently happening in a study separate from this one. It's an NJDOT concept development study that STV is working on. This would provide an exclusive pedestrian phase, as well as a separate left turn lane along Nassau. I think that's there already. Maybe I think about the right turn lane, but so there would be additional improvements here besides also signal timings that we would work in coordination with the project that is currently going on with NJDOT and STV. The other improvement that would have to be implemented would be at Vandeventer, and currently the exclusive pedestrian phase given to pedestrians is 42 seconds, and it's extremely high. What that means is the vehicles on every single approach are sitting for almost a minute so pedestrians can safely cross. We're working with NJDOT and Deanna to recalculate and retime so we can safely reduce the time that's given to pedestrians so we can give some green time back to the vehicles. When we do that, the intersection improves significantly. Another major component when you're going to convert Witherspoon to northbound direction is you're going to do a one-way pair and you're going to convert South Tulane to the southbound direction. Because anytime you have a one-way traffic flow, you want to have a partner with that and a pair going in the opposite direction. So we would also convert South Tulane to one-way southbound. Okay, I think you want to go on to, all right. So here is alternative C, which is the southbound, converting Witherspoon to southbound. All of the mitigation members are the same. We still would like to prohibit left turns at Chambers. We would still implement the reduced exclusive pedestrian phase at Vandeventer. Similar at Witherspoon, the project is still going on with NJDOT and STV for an exclusive pedestrian phase there as well. With this alternative, however, to help with the queuing, since traffic would still be allowed to travel southbound on Witherspoon, we would have separate exclusive left and right turn lanes to help the traffic dissipate and clear every single cycle length. And we also wanted that since you're going to be having the on-street dining, you don't want the vehicles to be queuing there for a minute and the exhausts while people are outside dining. So those are additional improvements that would be had at Witherspoon and Nassau. In conjunction, just like with the South Tulane conversion, we would also convert Spring Street to one way in the opposite direction that it is going today, which would be westbound. And we would do that because you want to have the circulation pattern kind of in the counterclockwise motion. So we would have also convert Spring Street in addition to Witherspoon Street. I think we can go to the next slide. After reviewing all of the considerations and the factors, we also had meetings with the business owners. We also had a meeting with NGDOT. It was determined that our recommendation is going to be alternative B, to convert Witherspoon one-way operation northbound. And that is the alternative that we're going to move forward with and study it in more detail. Next slide. Oh.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
I'll take it over from here.
Okay.
So as I mentioned in the previous slide where I showed these cross sections, again, at the top is the pre-COVID condition that was very heavily weighted towards motor vehicle space. And
Sorry, Deanna, to interrupt. Can you just get a little closer to your computer again? Thanks.
Sure, sorry about that. So with the top part of the slide shows that the public area is heavily skewed towards motor vehicles, and a compromise to better allocate the space is something like we show on the bottom part of the slide, which is a one-way hybrid. And I'll move to the next slide, which also gives an aerial view of what this hybrid would look like. It would not have continuous parking lanes. Part of the feedback is that we want opportunities for green infrastructure to manage the stormwater issues that we currently have on Witherspoon Street, as well as to provide water quality and quantity and recharge along this corridor. Plus, we are also able to reallocate some of the sidewalk area for outdoor dining. One difference between the experiment that is underway versus what we're proposing in this working concept is that the outdoor dining opportunities could occur closer to the building, and we would have the pedestrians closer to the roadway. This is just a working concept, and once the direction of travel is determined or is ordinance, then we can finalize some of the crosswalk placements, stop bar placements, that type of thing, because depending on the direction of travel, it may be better to have, say, the crosswalk at Tulane Yard in a different location. So this is still a work in progress, but we wanted to show a visual of what a one-way may look like. The area between the green spaces here, we've been working with emergency services because they have indicated that they need a certain clear space to be able to place the outriggers for their fire vehicle. And it's more easily done where you have parking on both sides. So some of this green infrastructure that's shown with the green shading may be pushed back so that we can better accommodate emergency services. So like I said, this is still a little bit in flux, but like I said, once the determination on the direction has been finalized, we'll be working closely with the utility companies to finalize this plan, because there are so many underground utilities. We want to make sure that our changes don't have conflicts that make them have inoperable issues. Again, this then shows the section from Green Street to Hulfish, some different ideas and opportunities of reclaiming parking down by the public library, making some changes at the north end by Green Street. Again, here are some of the flexible design ideas that have come out of the various public meetings. We are excited by opportunities to design the roadway in a flexible way so that as our density changes, as transportation modes change, we have the ability to adapt this roadway. So in the top right and the top left corners show using different paving materials than we typically use. And So those are ideas that we are seriously going to be looking at in here as we put together the final design. Again, another slide just to indicate that a roadway similar to this can be adapted. You know, you can put parklets in the parking spaces. You can convert parking spaces to outdoor seating or other opportunities. The neck downs at each side of the road can be utilized and closed off so that you do have a car-free space that can be activated for special events. And then another big part of the project that we're looking at is a wayfinding program to better direct people around town. We know that we do receive many thousands, millions of visitors to Princeton, Princeton University, and Mercer County. And it's been a project, it's actually been a goal since we started the meter replacement project in 2018 to look at our wayfinding and better help people get to parking destinations to reduce the travel trips and cut down on the pollution and the circling activity that occurs. And we'd rather get people parked and out of their cars to their destination so they can walk around and see the beauty of Princeton. So those, that really covers, I think that's the end of my slides. Just to give an update, I'd been at the council on October 19th. So what I did is I've given an update on where we're at. After the ordinance process this month, we are looking to go back to the Historic Preservation Commission in January to talk about the details of the project further. As Heather noted, because Witherspoon Street abuts Highway 27, the state highway has jurisdiction on the state highway as well as the access points. So we are required to get an access permit from NJDOT. So we will be submitting that with the traffic study as well as the application and the construction plans when they are further along. It should be noted that DOT supports the idea that a one-way roadway is safer than a two-way roadway. You have lesser conflict opportunities. And as we mentioned in the memo, we met with DOT on Friday, and they are supportive of our recommendation. We will be putting together the final design in 2021, and based on DOT's approval of the permit application, we've pushed construction into 2022 because they have indicated that the permit process can typically take a while. They did indicate 9 to 15 months. But be assured that we will be working closely with them to keep that towards the 9-month rather than the 15-month process. So that's the end of the presentation, and Heather and I are available if you have questions about any of the findings or the analysis in the traffic study.
Yeah, I
Great.
know I went
Thank you.
through mine quickly. But I know there's a lot of numbers and a lot of letters and everything. So yeah, if anyone has any questions on specifics, please let me know.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to thank you both for that presentation, and hopefully folks are able to follow along. I was just going to say, if anybody's directionally challenged, the northbound is what is there right now. So it's going away from Nassau Street. And I was wondering, even though this isn't part of the discussion tonight, Ms. Stockton, can you just, it was referred to the project that DOT is doing at the light. If you can just give a little background on that, and then I just want to sort of redefine what the decision is in front of council tonight.
Right. So I think as far back as 2017, Princeton Council has supported consideration of an exclusive pedestrian phase at the Witherspoon Street, Nassau Street intersection. We were actually looking at the 4 intersections from Washington Van Divender to Bayard. And unfortunately, the equipment that is in place is outdated and cannot handle a timing sequence such as an exclusive pedestrian phase. Plus, we also have a visually impaired resident who made a request to the State Highway Department to make modifications to the signal as well. So all of that resulted in the creation of a limited scope concept development study by DOT, and they hired a consultant, STV, to undertake that study to look at improvements specifically only at that intersection. Their study does not go further afield. And so we coordinated last fall and then into early this year about their project and what the analysis was going to entail, and they were made aware of our project. So they've been holding on their project until Princeton has made a decision on the vision for Witherspoon Street near Nassau. And once they get a directive from Princeton Council, their project can proceed. So out of their concept study, they will have a preferred alternative that will be put forward into final design, and then a construction project to replace the traffic signal, as well as the ADA curb ramps at that intersection, and lighting. They will be increasing lighting as well.
Great, thank you. So I think that's just important to know in terms of the context of all the work that's going on in this area. But just, I know council knows that, but just for everybody tuning in, just to clarify, this project has a lot of different components to it. But the piece that's in front of council tonight for this ordinance introduction is really just limited to the direction of the traffic, because making some determination on that really helps to put the necessary framework around what the design can be. So it's hard to talk about one without talking about the rest, but just to clarify, that the decision to move forward is really right now focused on the traffic pattern. Mr. Cohen, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I actually have 3 questions. One is, in the report, you did not look at traffic movements coming through Palmer Square, in particular to Palmer Square South. I actually already use Palmer Square to avoid backups at Witherspoon and Chamber Street. And I would anticipate a lot more of that kind of movement if we make Witherspoon northbound only. And I would like you to sort of address why you didn't take that, take a look at that in the study. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, it's a minor one, but I know there was a recommendation to create a left turn lane as well as a straight and right turn at the intersection between Witherspoon and Paul Robeson. And the design that Ms. Stockton showed us with parking on either side by the library did not look like it could accommodate a left turn lane separately. And I just wanted you to reflect on how important that left turn only lane is to keep traffic flowing adequately. And then the third thing that I wanted to ask is, in the report, the last table, table number 3 on page 25, showed some fairly scary increased delays at Van Deventer and Nassau Street if we go with option B. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about mitigation strategies. I had a little conversation at the beginning of the meeting with Ms. Stockton that there are some ways to improve that intersection further. And I guess I'd like you to reflect, Heather, on how much you can reduce those 6-minute plus almost 7-minute waits for people southbound on Van Deventer that are shown in the table currently, even with improvements to the traffic flow. Those are my 3 questions.
Okay, sure. No, they're very good questions. I'll answer them the best I can. As far as Palmer Square, we did not include these intersections in our study because we didn't feel they provided the most direct travel route between Hulfish and Nassau. Also, not the most direct route to the parking garages. We thought they were more like cut through, and the majority of the people we felt were either going to use Chambers or Van Deventer. It's not to say that
I'm sorry to to interrupt, but one of the nice things about Palmer Square South is that the roadway is wide enough that there can be a left and a right turn lane as you approach Nassau Street. So I think that's part of why I anticipate a lot more cut-through traffic there, especially if we eliminate the southbound on Witherspoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we had to make assumptions. We had to look at existing traffic patterns. We looked at an origin destination study, and we just, you never know where people are going to end up traveling after you convert a road one way. So we picked what we thought was going to be what route everyone was taking. Again, it may be split. Maybe people won't take Chambers, and like you said, they'll take Palmer Square, which would just improve the conditions because we did it in a conservative manner, and we threw everyone at Chambers or Van Deventer. So if we're now splitting it between, it's just going to just actually improve our analysis results if we're redistributing traffic even more.
Good reason for looking at it.
We also have the opportunity with our wayfinding program to help direct visitors where we want them to enter town as well as exit town. So I think that's going to be an opportunity to address some of that cut through traffic that us locals know and use, but keep the majority with the visitors outside of that space as much as possible.
Yeah, because I think the parking sign is there's an existing directing at Chambers, so it'll catch you there, and I don't think there's parking signs at Palmer Square. So if you do want to deter people from utilizing Palmer Square, you put the wayfinding at the other intersections. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Can I go on to your next question, Mr. Collins?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Witherspoon and Paul Robeson. Yes, we are proposing or recommending improvements at the intersection. One of them is I guess I'll say northbound Witherspoon Street currently is a single approach. Because the opposing approach, it's the opposite approach of southbound Witherspoon Street, has an exclusive southbound left turn lane. We were going to recommend having Witherspoon Street also have an exclusive left turn lane. It's good to have approaches mirror each other. When you have a exclusive left turn lane, it takes traffic off of the through lane, so the through vehicles can pass by easily. And the other improvement we were going to recommend and implement is also either an exclusive pedestrian phase, or if that doesn't operate great, we would just do the lead pedestrian interval. So those are those are two improvements that are going to be considered at the intersection for any an alternative that is selected.
And on our working concept, we had not shown the left turn lane because we were not at that point in the analysis. So there will be some modification needed to those parking spaces based on the amount of right-of-way that we have at that location.
Mhm. But I guess the question I had asked was, how bad would it be if we didn't make that left turn improvement in order to retain the additional parking spaces that are shown in the current layout?
That the improvement of the left turn lane is not critical. So the intersection would be okay with or without it.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And then to address the final comment at Nassau and Van Deventer, I understand the numbers are scary. The intersection does not operate that great because of the exclusive pedestrian phase. And I also know that, alternative C is less impact and does operate better than alternative B. However, due to discussions with NJDOT last week and feedback from them, I'm confident that I can tweak the intersection further with signal timings and tweaking the exclusive pedestrian phase to get the intersection to operate even better. I don't know what those numbers are yet because I have to still have conversations with the department. But again, the numbers that you're seeing and what are in the report are worst case scenario during the peak hours, the peak 1 hour time period for the entire day. So I think the worst number at this intersection was during the PM peak, and that is 1 hour. I believe it was 4:15 to 5:15. That's when you will see the highest volumes throughout the entire 24-hour day. That's when you will see. After that, it will only be better. You won't see numbers like that. You won't see a queue like that. You won't see a delay like that. But again, these are preliminary numbers. We just had the meeting with DOT on Friday, and feedback from them. I'm confident that the timings can be tweaked even further to get the intersection to work much better.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
problem.
Councilwoman Niedergang?
Thanks. This is a perfect segue because I also wanted to focus a little bit on that same intersection. And Ms. Stockton and I had a conversation earlier, but I just wanted to go over that in public. I know, Heather, you're talking about reducing the all pedestrian phase from 42 seconds to 29 seconds. And I'm sure that there are safety studies that you do, because that seems like a very big change to me. And the intersection as a pedestrian has not seemed, like there's an overly long pedestrian phase. I know if you're in the car, it may seem that way, but as a pedestrian crossing there, I haven't felt like I'll just saunter across very slowly. So I just wonder I have another question too, but for this one, what do you do to make sure that when you go from, let's say, 42 to 29 seconds, that is still a safe crossing for people who may move slowly, who are elderly, who are in a wheelchair, or what is the process?
So that was our first calculation. And then after the meeting on Friday, it was determined we're not able to reduce it that much. So it's not going to be reduced to 29 seconds. We're still going back and forth whether it's going to be reduced from 42 to 38 seconds or even 34 seconds. So we will make sure it is safe for no matter who is crossing, elderly, wheelchair, children, that you will have enough sufficient amount of time to cross the street. So yeah, that was a preliminary first calculation number, and it's not going to be to 29 seconds. It's looking about 38 to 34 seconds now. It'll be reduced to.
That seems like a big difference. And then
Yeah.
I think, I'm pretty sure I
Can I
know
just, sorry, can I just interject there for a second? Because I've done my own sort of studies at that intersection. And I've walked very, very slowly across the diagonal and usually have about 12 extra seconds, if not more, after crossing. So I just encourage you to go back and actually watch what happens there. But the longest way to cross is the diagonal. And you can actually easily cross two legs, like, I can't remember what it's called of the triangle, but like the two arms of the triangle, and still have time left over. So it's a very, very generous amount of time, even if you're not walking super fast. And you'll see that in a car, even if you're waiting there, you'll see the pedestrians clear the intersection and you'll be sitting there for another 15, 20 seconds often.
And there is something called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which does stipulate a walking speed. And that is what Heather and DOT are using to calculate the time for the crossing. There's a little bit of negotiation potentially because DOT has not implemented this type of a signal phase at very many locations. And so you have different parts of the signal to make up that 42 seconds. And Heather's probably better to talk about this, but I think there's 3 different parts. And so there's the possibility of maybe kind of negotiating a second here or 2 on each of those 3 parts. So that's what they're currently working on, is doing the calculations, the analysis, and setting up support for the negotiations.
Right, and I know that DOT was resistant to putting this type of signal in, so my guess is they don't have a tremendous amount of experience with them, and so there's probably room for improvement. So just wanted to make sure that everybody's safety was high on my criteria list. My other question, which I think I understand, in the alternative B with the improvements, 2-lane street becomes one-way southbound. Will you be able to make a left turn onto Nassau Street? I thought I remembered that you couldn't, but then I looked through the materials again and I couldn't find that information. And I wonder, when you do, this is a 2-part question. So one is factual and the other is, when you do make a change 2-lane to southbound, it seems that that's going to also take some of the pressure off the the Nassau and Van Deventer intersection. So I wonder, has that occurred to you, and do you think that's likely?
Yeah, so with the conversion of South 2-lane to southbound, given there's sight distance limitations on the South 2-lane approach. So yes, left turns would be restricted from this approach. So they would have to be redistributed elsewhere. But yeah, converting South 2-lane does help the Van Deventer approach as well.
Okay. And just finally, I just want to say there are a lot of people in the audience who care very passionately about this. There's been a lot of comment on both sides: keep it open, make it 2 lanes, make it 1 lane, make it all pedestrian. And in my mind, this is a very nice kind of splitting of the difference that will, especially in the very flexible vision that Deanna laid out, that will allow us to create a pedestrian mall on a temporary basis. We can evaluate that, see how that goes. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, do less of it. And so I really appreciate a vision that allows a lot of flexibility. And I think this is a nice compromise between the camps on stay open and close it completely. So thank you for all your hard work on this.
Since there are so
Thanks.
many people waiting in the audience, do we want to give them a chance?
Well, I'd like to make sure that council gets their questions answered first, and then I was going to open it up. So just wanted to see if anybody else first on council had any questions. Nope. Okay. So then we will open up the Public comment, and I'm just going to read the ordinance so everybody knows what we're talking about, or at least read the title. This is ordinance 2020-51, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton regulating traffic movements on Witherspoon Street and amending the code of the borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1964. And we did receive some emails on this, but I think for tonight, we'll start with I can't call it in person, but we'll start with the people who are actually tuning in to the meeting, and then we'll follow up at the end with the emails. So Arlene, are you interested in speaking? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a comment. You've had your hand up for a while, so why don't we come back to you? Next is Brian Levinson.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
So my name is Brian, and my wife Megan and I live with our 3-year-old son, who you might be able to hear in the background, on Patton Avenue in Riverside. And I'm just speaking tonight because I really support the pedestrian-friendly Witherspoon Street. And several weeks ago, I actually decided to launch a petition in favor of the redesign. And I wasn't quite expecting the outpouring of support from the Princeton community and beyond. But as of tonight, we have nearly 1,000 signatures. I think we're at like 965 to be exact. And so I think my plan is just to keep open the petition, allowing others to make their voice heard, and then submit the full list to members of the council before the final vote. And I just wanted to thank you all for your vision and for your consideration of this ordinance.
Great, thank you very much. Next is Frank Armenante.
Yes, this is Frank Armenante. I'll go through this as quickly as possible. I'm a business owner and a property owner of Balance Enterprises, 28 Witherspoon Street in the Alchemist and Barrister. I've been here for almost 48 years, well, just about 48 years. And the property I'm also the property representative of other businesses and property owners on Witherspoon Street, delineated in my letter to the editors of Planet Princeton, published December 7th, and Town Topics to be published on December 9th. I mentioned Brian Levinson. He's a resident of Princeton. He started a petition on change.org, which has close to 1,000 signatures supporting essentially what I've written in my letters to the editors. The main points of the letters to the Planet Princeton and Town Topics are the beautification, the cleanliness, the safety, the friendly street design, the flexibility that allows one-way access to personal cars, deliveries, and service vehicles at set times, and also allows closure at other times for safe outdoor space during meeting of friends in the community and community building. As we all know, the opening of the gates at Nassau Street lead directly from Princeton University to Witherspoon. Finally, this is an excellent and inviting approach for Princeton University students, faculty, and other visitors of the university. Now I'd like to make one more comment concerning most of the Princeton owners and real estate and the tenants for the future Princeton agree one-lane street going north to Witherspoon, from Witherspoon to Spring Street. This is a beautification, cleanliness, and safety need, and proper timing of deliveries of products and garbage pickups that are on the northern portion and southern portion of Witherspoon Street from Nassau to Spring Street should be considered and be a goal of Princeton. To have easily accessible retail and proper dining for the afternoon and nighttime on Witherspoon Street, ordinance should be drafted and deal with the timing of deliveries, garbage pickups, and emergency needs. Any use of funds for the accomplishment of developing pedestrian thoroughfare, as noted above, will work properly with the one-lane traffic and strategically placed parking and pickup. It has been said by many in the community that one-way traffic has been successful and as a pedestrian thoroughfare from Nassau Street to Spring Street. I would also note that curbs should be considered optional with respect to the building of this thoroughfare, so to make it more flexible and more adjustable. That's about all I have to say, but including my letters, as I said, we're put in the Planet and Planet Princeton, and also will be in the town topics on Wednesday. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate all the work that's being done by council and the mayor.
Thank you very much. Next, Andrew Siegel. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Mayor Lempert and council members, there is light at the end of the tunnel, it seems, for what I think has been a very long, very arduous, and at times very passionately argued tunnel leading to a solution for Witherspoon Street. I just want to say, first of all, the amount of effort that has been put into this by all parties has been pretty remarkable, especially during a time in December and November, busy holiday season for a lot of merchants who are really trying to get by here. And there's been a lot of passionate debate, and this is what Princeton is about. So that's pretty cool from my perspective. Also, certainly the points made by Ms. Stockton in her letter, representing the traffic study, really it means a lot that the merchants and worry for parking was taken into account, and I know that it means a lot that you guys looked at that. So we thank you. You know, at this point, you're all pretty well aware of what the various parties who have been vocal think. The merchants have made their cases, and a portion of residents have made their cases as well. Tonight is about introducing an ordinance, and I don't think the public hearing is right now, so I'm not going to go into that, but I do think it's important to make two procedural points as you all decide whether or not to introduce this exact ordinance tonight for Witherspoon Street. Firstly, a portion of the preamble reads, quote, whereas the municipality of Princeton undertook a successful pilot experiment of a reduction of the motor vehicle space in the project corridor during the current COVID-19 pandemic to allow for outdoor dining and retail operations. I'm not sure how truthful these statements need to be in a government ordinance, but if they do indeed have to be truthful, then that statement reads as false to the merchants who wrote letters to Planet Princeton and Town Topics and who have spoken with many of you. As many merchants have stated, the current one-way setup has actually been decidedly unsuccessful for our retail and quick service friends. We all agreed to it temporarily in the interest of helping our 3 full-service restaurant neighbors on the street during COVID. And I, for one, personally was honored to be part of the committee that pushed for a one-way setup temporarily. It worked really well for those restaurants that needed outdoor dining to provide. However, as we've made clear to council, the setup has not been successful for quote unquote businesses. It helps if we all work from the same set of facts. And the fact is that when people say this was good for business, I think they're typically meaning that it was good for restaurants and bars. Retail and quick service often gets forgotten in these conversations, just as they've been forgotten in Somerville, Red Bank, Asbury Park, and other towns where good retailers and quick service shops have fled due to the lack of business and limited access streets. So I would just say if the council is interested in adopting this ordinance, that section that reads what I quoted in the preamble there maybe should be stricken or possibly adjusted to eliminate the words retail operations. Secondly, and lastly, I understand that the public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for December 21st. And please understand that 4 days before Christmas, the very businesses that will be affected mostly by this ordinance, affected most by this ordinance, will be focused 100% on making their holiday season, making their month, and making their year. A year where they can ill afford to spend even more time speaking on this and fighting for what they know they need to survive. So I ask kindly and I plead with you that you possibly consider pushing back the public hearing for this to a date in the new year when retailers and other merchants can spend some more time providing their feedback and input. It's a tremendous burden of time and energy, as you all well know, which many simply don't have during the time of the year. And I would hope that you'd want to hear those merchants. So I appreciate the time this evening. And again, despite the at times contentious debate, really appreciate all of the opinions here. And the truth is that we're all really moving towards the same goal, which is a better Princeton. And I'm just really very happy with hearing everyone's opinions. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, I think all of us take your comments about the timing to heart. And I think that's, while this process has been going on for a while, and I think we've tried to make an effort to reach out even before tonight to meet with all the merchants and owners on Witherspoon Street. And just to let everybody know that you don't have to appear at the meeting on the 21st in order to make put in comments as part of the public comment. So we do accept email submissions, and you'll see that tonight too. I'm going to be reading several email submissions that we got from people who were not able to attend the meeting tonight. So I think we all know that the timing's not ideal. If I could wave a magic wand, we wouldn't be doing this month, but we have other considerations too. And that this is such an important decision that shapes the rest of the project. So, in order for the engineering department to move forward with the design, they really have to know what the traffic pattern is going to be. And we don't want to rush that part of the project either. And then we have deadlines to meet with the, in order to make sure that we're working together with DOT when they're working on the light, and in order to release some of the grant funding that we have in line for this project. So, this is not the first time this is coming up, obviously, tonight. I think we've been trying to engage with the merchant community for the past several months, I think, actually, on this. So, we understand, and I wish it weren't so, but it's just, it's part of the many challenges we have to deal with right now. Yeah, Niv, you're next.
There we go. Okay, hi. My name is Yael Niv, and I live on Franklin Avenue. I'm also a member of Princeton Progressive Action Group. And so since 2017, since the Nygaard parking study, PPAG has been wishing for a pedestrian in Witherspoon Street. We did not wish for COVID, but we did wish for this. And I think traffic studies that we've seen today, they show one side. They focus on what we will lose and how, which is roadway or parking, and how we will accommodate for that, but they don't show the other side. They don't show a people-oriented, a recreation use study of what we will gain. And I think we'll gain a lot from this change to Witherspoon Street. I've lived in many cities in Israel and in the US and in the UK. And in every place that I've lived in, when pedestrian areas where recreation space was added, people flocked to it. People go out not only because of COVID, people go out and use these spaces in this very, very electronic, distanced social media world. We really appreciate space where we can commune with other people and really make community. So I read the merchants' concerns in Planet Princeton, and I have to say, I commented on it there as well, that I was really surprised that these concerns were associated with the temporary change of Witherspoon Street to one way rather than with COVID. So COVID is hurting everyone, obviously. Princeton is a big tourist destination. And our merchants are hurting badly because of COVID-19 and lack of tourism. I am a university professor. We used to have every week in every one of my 2 departments, we had a speaker that we would take out for dinner in a group. Now we do not do that. We're not bringing students over to interview. We didn't have reunions. All of our undergraduates are not on campus. Obviously, a lot of business has gone away. This is not because of Witherspoon Street being one way. This is because of COVID-19. And so I'm very surprised and dismayed to see that the very merchants that use, for instance, Labyrinth, that uses a sidewalk for book displays, a very wide sidewalk on Nassau, or Small World Coffee that uses parking spaces for a much loved parklet every year, Witherspoon Grill and Christine's that have access to a huge pedestrian plaza. These are the businesses that are telling us that we don't need this space, that we need parking space and we need wide lanes for traffic. I think this is just a mistake. COVID, as I said, is hurting everybody, and we know this. The residents of Princeton, we're going above and beyond to try to help our businesses, to help with donations, to help with purchases. We're not buying on Amazon anymore. And hopefully that will stay even after COVID, because we've really seen the need to build community and to maintain community locally. And I think this human-friendly design of Witherspoon Street will improve our lives, improve your businesses. I'm saying this to the merchants. And we just need to be a little bit creative here and imagine a future after COVID, and it will be better with a one-way Witherspoon Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Moriello?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to council and a mayor to talk. And what I would like to say, it's a little bit of a continuation of the person just spoke before me. And I'm owner of a restaurant Witherspoon Street. And 23 years ago, when I moved in this area in Princeton, I fall in love with this town because I could picture where I am from Italy, that we have a lot outside the live and walk around the shop to retails. And so what I see now, it's an opportunity to change and begin something new of people using pedestrian and walk around and shopping and eat. And so that's what I wanted to say, that we should take the opportunity now to do changes and not be worried to change. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. Carlos Rodriguez?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, but I was muted. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. So Carlos Rodriguez, I'm actually a professional planner. I live on Moore Street, and I've, in my long career, have worked on actual road closures, not partial neck downs or reductions, but actual closures. The first one, believe it or not, was back in the late 1980s. It was not in the United States, but it was in a historic area, and it was a multi-block project that was done for historic preservation purposes because the emissions from the motor vehicles were seriously damaging the historic buildings. I went back to visit a few years ago, and I was very happy to see how well used that area is. There were thousands, literally thousands of people walking around and using the shops and the restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Huge success. More recently, I've been doing 2 other full closures up in Somerset County. The town is looking for funding to effectuate them. And it was done at the town's request. So I think that what's being proposed is a step in the right direction. I would like to see it go further, but at least we seem to be moving in the right direction. I had one other observation, which is that the traffic engineering discussion I found to be inadequate. It focused entirely on motor vehicles and did not mention pedestrians a single time. And yet this is being done, this is being done for the pedestrians. There are frequently many more people at the intersection of Van Deventer and Nassau waiting to cross than there are cars queuing up. So let's get our priorities right, people. This is a town for people, not for motor vehicles. We can tolerate the motor vehicles, but these decisions should not be made exclusively with the motor vehicle and the convenience of whoever is driving them in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. George Stein?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Well, we've lived in Princeton since 1996. I am an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, also a member of Princeton Progressive Action Coalition, but I'm here speaking just for myself with my own opinions. My preference would be a complete pedestrian zone with limited amounts or scheduled delivery time zones for the shops. And as part of this, I mean, I've been in a number of cities where this hasn't, and it always attracts a huge number of people. The other issue, I guess, before I get to sort of my second choice, would be that it would be important, and I think it's the case in some of these other pedestrian zones, that there be an effect of branding. And so I just doodling came up with things like Princeton Pavilion at Witherspoon or Witherspoon Pavilion at Princeton, and maybe some signage uniformity, which I've seen in some of the other shopping zones, that would essentially make it a destination, not just for the Princeton people, but for the folks who come to Princeton to partake of the ambiance. As to my second choice, if you're going to do the northbound one-way, I would recommend not having parking on both sides. Limit the parking to one side. It seems to me that in terms of supplying the store owners and the restaurants, if they're going to cross a sidewalk using hand trucks, they can cross the street, during set hours, also using hand trucks. So the point being to maximize the space for people to be walking and enjoying, the basic pavilion type of aspect. And that's essentially, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just wanted to mention that, again, sort of like we're not voting on the diagram that Ms. Stockton showed us earlier. That was really just, I think, more of a proof of concept more than anything else. The design piece comes later, but we appreciate your comments on that. And I don't see anybody else remaining with their hands up. So I just want to give people another chance, and then I'm going to read the emails that we received. Okay, not seeing anybody, so I'm going to go ahead and we received quite a few emails. The first is from Jessica Wilson, 720 Hibben McGee Road. I'm a graduate student at Princeton University. I'm writing to support the introduction and passage of Ordinance 2020-51. During the pandemic, my friends and I have been frequent visitors to the new and inviting Witherspoon Streetery. It is not surprising that we visit the restaurants and shops on Witherspoon more. Other area businesses benefit as well. Previously, we would take our lunch back to campus to eat. Now, with on-street seating, we are more likely to walk over to the Princeton Running Company to check out the new shoes, browse the books at Labyrinth, treat ourselves to bubble tea at Kung Fu Tea, or ice cream at Palmer Square after lunch. Given how much business owners stand to benefit from increased pedestrian traffic and expanded outdoor dining, I hope they will champion our shared cause. Our shared public space is extremely valuable as it is the place where we build community. Designating it for parking is not the best land use. It takes up an immense amount of space. Drivers circle the block looking for on-street parking, driven by the random reward of the occasional spot opening up, adding to congestion and pollution. Cars on the street discourage socializing. They are noisy, making it hard to have a conversation. It would be much better if those who wanted parking went straight to the garage and walked to their destination. On the way, they might discover businesses they did not know about and run into friends. Princeton is not a strip mall and should not aspire to become one. New Jersey has no shortage of strip malls, lonely places with lots of vacancies and fierce Amazon.com competition. Let's be different. Let's be a place where we can all thrive. Let's be a place we want to be. Let's be a fun, people-friendly, and equitable Princeton. The next email is from Debbie Roldan. Dear council members, it has been wonderful to dine outside safely on Witherspoon Street during this pandemic. It has been I think there's like I'm not quite sure what word she wanted here, maybe respite from loneliness, and it helped to keep our restaurants in business. After this pandemic is no longer an issue, it would be wonderful to keep the same small section of Witherspoon closed, at least in the evenings, to permit outdoor dining. Dining without traffic passing by makes the town more inviting, cozy, and even more European in feel. Next is from Gretchen and Ron Overheiser. My husband and I are regular visitors to Princeton, driving from Pennington to eat, shop, and attend cultural activities. The only thing that we've long felt missing from your wonderful community is the absence of outdoor dining and gathering opportunities. The movement toward outdoor dining, inspired by desperate times in the past few months, has been an unexpected upside for us. And once we return to a situation where restaurants can safely open indoor and outdoor dining both, it might allow them to increase their capacity and therefore accommodate more diners, addressing our biggest complaint, which is that restaurants fill up so fast that we often are not able to get a table. We have no need to drive around and look for a metered spot when plentiful parking in garages is available. The ability to dine outdoors and to shop in a traffic-free pedestrian zone is immensely appealing to us, and we suspect it is appealing to many others as well. We look forward to your decision to create a traffic-free zone on Witherspoon so that we can visit and support Princeton businesses even more. Next is from Michael Foss, 79 Dempsey Avenue. Witherspoon Street used to be a central feature in a dad ritual I enjoyed with each of my daughters when they were teens. We would walk or bike to town on Saturdays. We'd pick up a ciabatta at the Witherspoon Bakery, coffee at the Small World, then stroll around campus before making our way home via the library. We would talk about life, the universe, and everything. With or without daughters, I experience Witherspoon Street as part of the lively heart of our historic town. It really is the perfect place to amble about and see what's happening, then sit down for a drink or a bite. The parklet in front of Small World Coffee has been very popular in summertime and shows that there was appetite for outdoor seating even before the pandemic. This summer, Witherspoon Street has looked more attractive than ever despite the concrete barriers. Who doesn't like to dine outside with friends, enjoying a breeze or the shade of trees with good food? Who doesn't enjoy people watching? Let us not go back to the Witherspoon Street of pre-COVID times. Instead, let us turn it into the face of Princeton, inviting and people-friendly. Next is from Randy Rutberg. As a resident of Princeton, I strongly support making Witherspoon Street as pedestrian-friendly as possible. I firmly believe that this would help build community and help merchants rebound after the economic downturn associated with COVID-19. Having lived in Boulder, Colorado, a town that chose to revive their struggling downtown by building a pedestrian mall along their historic Main Street, I could testify that this was a very successful strategy. For Princeton, I visualize a pedestrian-only Witherspoon Street where Princetonians and visitors could eat, drink, shop, relax, listen to live music, and allow their children to wander and play. Increased foot traffic would give more people a reason and opportunity to shop locally. The current situation with timed parking meters and expensive tickets for overstaying are detrimental to shoppers and merchants. I am sure that I am not alone in receiving a parking ticket for browsing a little too long at a local shop. Princeton could even consider free municipal parking on weekends. The extra income generated by shoppers and diners might make up for this loss in sales tax. Finally, creating a downtown area where residents could talk, walk, meet, and gather would build our community. I think that after 2020, when so many have been isolated and or in need of help, we all realize just how important community is. Thank you for your consideration. Next is from Alicia Fowler, 26 Lake Lane. Thank you for your hard work on town planning and for taking public comments. I am writing as a Princeton resident to express my strong support for the development of a permanent one-way northbound operation on Witherspoon Street from Nassau to Spring. Below are my comments. Thank you again for hearing this. I look forward to connecting with you. Through attending the public meeting on the future of Witherspoon Street, I learned that the vast majority of folks surveyed prefer a one-way or car-free future for Witherspoon Street. I also learned that folks believe in the power of positive change and in the power of beauty and in the power and beauty of turning some of our streetscapes into less car-dominated landscapes. Folks articulated visions of a space with safer streets, ripe with the opportunity for social interactions and joyful crowd-drawing commerce. I also learned that some of the local businesses on Witherspoon have some concerns and some desire a return to the two-way street with no impacts on traffic or parking. From seeing some of the businesses' latest editorials, I believe that they need to be adequately heard as they are quite concerned. However, I also hope that council can balance these businesses' concerns with the overwhelming support from residents, non-residents, and other local businesses for the development of an innovative and more pedestrian-friendly street. I felt somewhat apprehensive or frustrated that the concerned businesses offered a strongly worded editorial without providing data to support their stances or leaving any visible room for compromise or negotiation around alternatives to the return to a two-way street. I also learned that the town council had a private meeting with the businesses as well, and it also made me concerned that the businesses would utilize that meeting to try to pressure the council to return to a two-way street without adequate town residents and others present. In short, I'm optimistic that our town can find a way forward that hears all parties. I believe we can utilize our wonderful town resources to work together and find a vibrant compromise in a one-way streetscape with adequate loading zones and means to offer logistical support for local businesses. I also want to share that I would love to get more involved with you all. Before moving to Princeton in summer 2019, I was a small food business owner in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a business that served coffee and community to its neighbors. My husband is a professor at Princeton, and I foresee us being here for the long term. I would love to contribute my perspective and efforts to your important work. Thank you for your time and for hearing my comment. This next one is from Nat Bottenheimer. The single greatest asset of Princeton's downtown is its on-street sociability. This is what attracts me, a Princeton resident and Princeton shopper, and what causes me to buy and order books from Labyrinth rather than order from Amazon, to browse jewelry, buy woolens, or have a meeting in a cafe. This past Saturday, my wife and I walked with our dog to town from our home in the Littlebrook neighborhood. We bought books and ran into friends on the street as we often do along Nassau and Witherspoon. Today I will make the same trip, but on an e-bike to get my hair cut. Even so, there is not enough space for people to experience unscripted, wander browsing, and social encounters. Jousting with cars at intersections around Witherspoon on foot or on bike is just not pleasant. And a town center oriented towards car access might as well be Route 1. Keeping streets open to cars but constrained for others might seem like a good customer access for some merchants, but it does nothing for residents like me, and it reduces whatever distinction and competitive advantage that our town center has compared to other places. Bumping unplanned into friends and neighbors on the street is one of the most pleasant things there is, and it doesn't happen when people are traveling in cars or to and from them. Investing in streets that support human interaction and encouraging and welcoming walking and socializing by providing safety and comfort for kids and seniors is one of the ways that Princeton Council can help build more life and color into our community. This is important to advance under normal circumstances, but is all the more critical during a pandemic that has drained so much activity, sociability, and liveliness from our days. Please open Witherspoon as much as possible to walking, biking, shopping, dining, and socializing. I support experimenting with no through traffic. Service to businesses and emergency access are both necessary, of course, and should be incorporated into any design. Accommodating one-way traffic would be a welcome start. Thank you very much. And that was from Nat Bottenheimer, White Pine Lane. Next is Carolyn Jones, and I have 3 more. I think that's it, but I have 3 more emails to read. So Carolyn Jones, Western Way. I'm writing in support of a pedestrianized Witherspoon Street. It's so much more enjoyable to walk, shop, and dine downtown now that it is such an inviting place. The outdoor cafes, the reduction in heavy trucks and speeding traffic, as well as the superb creativity we've seen from our local merchants have made downtown Princeton a unique destination. Please, can we keep the best thing to come out of COVID? As for concerns about parking, I think these can be easily solved once out-of-town visitors realize how convenient the nearby parking lots are. Once you abandon your car in one of the inexpensive lots, which in truth could be better signposted, you're free to wander around town and truly enjoy the best of our lovely walkable town. Next is from Dorothea von Molke. I write to submit a comment in regard to Ordinance 2020-51 regarding traffic movements on Witherspoon Street. While I recognize that a public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for December 21st, I want to flag that the summary of the related traffic study contains a contradiction. On the one hand, it states that Witherspoon Street currently has the capacity to be converted to a one-way operations without causing excessive traffic operational problems to the adjacent study area intersections. Then paragraph 2 says, conversion or closure of Witherspoon Street is likely to degrade motor vehicle operations at 3 adjacent intersections. These two statements cannot both be true. Given that the study, while taking into consideration traffic data from prior years, was undertaken during conditions of severely reduced traffic due to COVID, and therefore could not be based on actual observation of traffic patterns, the extent to which operational problems at the 3 intersections are likely to occur clearly has not yet been possible to assess. Given that the merchants working on Witherspoon are daily observing traffic patterns, which even under COVID conditions are degrading motor vehicle operations at times to a significant degree, I would like to ask Council to consider that this question has not received the attention it requires. That was from Dorothea von Molke, a resident at 119 Linwood Circle, and also the owner of Labyrinth Books. And finally, Sherry Garber, 42 Bouvant Drive. Sorry, this is so last minute, but the day got away from me. Some thoughts on what to do with Witherspoon Street. Why not a trial period, closing it to automotive traffic from 10 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., or hours that are seasonally appropriate and can be adjusted as the trial goes on, from April through October. Again, be flexible with this. Deliveries, pickups before 10 a.m. when quick stops can also be made at Small World, Olives, House of Cupcakes. Otherwise, open the street to dining, shopping, entertainment, a place to have fun in town. I think it'll add to revenue for the merchants, attract out-of-towners, and be a great addition to our community. The pandemic, while horrific, has led to some wonderful creativity. Let's make lemonade out of lemons. If the committee working on this would like citizen involvement, I'm available. Thanks for listening. Okay. So given that we also will have a public hearing on this ordinance on the 21st, I'm going to close the public comment portion of this ordinance and bring it back to council. Just ask if there's any more discussion, any questions, any comments anybody would like to make. We'll start with Ms. Stockton.
Mayor, I was just going to ask, Heather would like to respond to the comment about the pedestrian activity. So I just wanted to turn it over.
Thank you, Deanna. Yeah, I just wanted to put something on record in response to one of the public comments that pedestrians were not taken into account in my traffic study. They were, in fact, heavily considered. One of the factors that was considered was pedestrian and bicycle accessibility and how it is improved with less vehicular traffic on the roadway. One-way conversions simplify crossing for pedestrians, and all of the designs of the alternatives included pedestrian enhancements at multiple study area intersections, not just intersections along Nassau Street or Witherspoon, but multiple study intersections have included pedestrian enhancements as recommendations. So I just wanted to put that on record that they were heavily considered and included in the analysis.
Thank you for that. Councilman Pearl-Lambros.
Thank you. Although I know this isn't the public hearing, since we're trying to get a lot of public comment out, I'd like to make some comments on this. First of all, Ms. Stockton and her team in engineering has done a fabulous job We've had numerous meetings, and I think that we have addressed a lot of the concerns with the business community. And I just wanted to make, first of all, thank you very much for everything that you're doing. I really believe that this ordinance for one way really addresses the varied interests of the businesses on Witherspoon and the adjacent streets. And I think it provides for the continuation of outdoor dining, which so many residents and the businesses want. I see this redesign plan as having very beneficial long-term impact on our community, both for residents and businesses. And I've personally received an overwhelming amount of support from the community that have been really enjoying the outdoor dining and the great ambiance. These businesses have weathered the worst of COVID, and hopefully the worst of COVID during the shutdown by having the outdoor dining. In some instances, they did quite well, and some of the restaurants' kitchens couldn't even handle, they were beyond capacity. This is a good thing. This added business and this projection for the future is what we want as a town. We want to see a thriving community. All of the full service restaurants that I've talked to and discussed this with are in favor of having a continuation on a permanent basis of outdoor dining. And even the takeout, the retailers, as well as the cafe style restaurants, for the most part, have seen additional pedestrian traffic and have told me they want to see this continue. This was survival this past year. I agree that we can't say that this was the best litmus test, but we have also seen that the someone just said making lemonade from lemons, and this is what the community really wants. I just want to say that overall, the additional business that they are going to see is a substantial benefit for the businesses. And I see that there will be viability and sustainability for the long term. The majority of the property owners also feel that this will be a great attraction to bring new business in and expand their existing businesses. And the retailers have commented to me that they're in favor of this because it brings incremental business. So in summary, this is just about the ordinance tonight and the introduction. We will have a lot of work to do on the design elements. We will continue to have conversations about parking and structuring and mitigation. But I think this is a great first step. We're working hand in hand with the community to make these decisions. So I thank you very much for all of your support and everything that you've done, Ms. Stockton. Thank you.
Ms. Niedergang, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to join Councilwoman Perrin-Lambros in thanking our staff and engineering, but also all our citizens and our retailers, our merchants in joining us and having conversations with us. So many people have reached out to us about that, whether it's through the petition, which I've been keeping my eye on, or through direct letters, or as some of the people who spoke tonight or whose emails the mayor read. It's really, this is what makes Princeton a wonderful place to be, is an engaged citizenry. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this conversation. I know, I think as I've said before, I won't always agree with you, but I will always listen, and I've learned a lot by listening. I want to just relate briefly a conversation that Councilwoman Perrin-Lambros and I had with someone who operates on the pedestrian mall in Somerville. He is the owner of a chocolate shop, which is very much a kind of drop-in business. It's not a full-service restaurant. And he reported, and he's on the, and Michelle, you could remind me, what the merchant board, the
Special Improvement District.
He's on the board of the Special Improvement District. So he felt comfortable, I think, representing not only his own personal experience, but some of the others. And enlightened in some of the conversations I've had with our merchants about their concerns, in particular about a business such as Small World, which relies very heavily on people, dropping in for something that is relatively inexpensive, but it's really a high volume kind of thing. I asked him about, did they have a similar type of business And they also have an artisanal coffee shop on the pedestrian mall, which he indicated had really thrived. Now, we're not proposing the creation of a pedestrian mall, and having done a bunch of research, even though I'm not by no means an urban planner, over the last few days on pedestrian malls, I learned a very surprising fact, which is of the pedestrian malls created in the last 30 or 40 years, about 90% of them have closed. The ones that have survived, again, I'm not saying we're creating a pedestrian mall, but we are turning more of Witherspoon over to pedestrians and less to traffic. So of the ones that have done well, they've shared some important criteria with Princeton. They have a population of under 100,000. The pedestrian mall area is short, it's 1 to 4 blocks. And they have a draw like a college or a university in them. So we meet a lot of those criteria for drawing people to us to support a more pedestrian centered area, even if it is what I hope will be a flexible space that provides both traffic for the very important function of providing deliveries to our retailers, cleaning up their grease traps, picking up their garbage, all those things that would be more challenging with a 24/7 pedestrian mall. But hopefully this proposal will also allow for some closure to attract people for events and other things like that. So I think this is a really promising step. I know there'll be kinks to work out, and I hope whether you support this proposal or are against this proposal, you'll just continue to maintain a dialogue with us that helps us get things better and improve what we're doing. So again, thank you for your engagement and your passion on this issue.
Thank you. Councilman Sachs?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on how much we all owe Councilwoman Perrone-Lambros a debt of gratitude for her vision in this process. It's really one of the most exciting things that Princeton has had before it in a long time. And the letters that we've been getting have reflected such enthusiasm and a sense of community and camaraderie generated by the current experience with the street, and also the anticipation and hope of how it will even be improved. And this was really Councilwoman Lambros's vision, and we are all on council very grateful for her spearheading this, and also for her, I think, elevating the concerns of the business community to in general, but in particular during this time of COVID, to bringing them to council's attention so that we can focus on what their needs are and making sure that we take into consideration things that impact them as we are making decisions for the community as a whole. So, and thank you, Deanna, too. And also thank you to Mayor Lempert, who has also been very helpful in this initiative. So.
Thank you. Thanks. Council President Cohen?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I am strongly in support of this ordinance. I think that it can be fantastic for Witherspoon Street. I want to, mention, Deanna did talk about this some, but I think that there's so much one can do with the design of the materials and the way that the details are pursued to both make this a wonderful space, but also make it a flexible space. And for those in the community who may be disappointed that it's not a proposal to have 100% pedestrian space, I think that with good design, it can be a space that can be easily converted for summer evenings, for weekend days, whenever people in town feel ready for it, into an all pedestrian zone on a temporary basis. And then I just wanted to say two other things. In reading the traffic report, I had some trouble coming to grips with the comparison between option B and option C. one of which B, which was recommended, has northbound flow on Witherspoon, just like what we've had during COVID. But I think there are two factors that really weren't at least brought out in detail during the discussion. One is that if Witherspoon were southbound, the pairing with Tulane would create a counterclockwise flow, which could be really a problem for traffic on Nassau Street with people waiting to turn left onto Tulane. So that's one of the things that I think, for me, preferences option B. And the other is that I think that the pedestrian movements across Nassau Street at Witherspoon work so much better with the traffic going northbound. All of us have sat in traffic for many light cycles, trying to make either a left or a right turn going southbound on Witherspoon to Nassau Street. And I think just getting rid of that problem, which is a problem for pedestrians as well as motorists, is a great thing about having the option B. So I just wanted to give those two detailed reasons why I'm supportive of this conclusion rather than going with option C.
Great,
Mayor,
thanks.
if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Just want to remind everyone that tonight is only an ordinance introduction. So for those who want to take time to consider all the different opinions tonight, we still have the opportunity for the future actual ordinance hearing. So it just seemed, this was a very extensive commentary period on an introduction. So just wanted to remind our viewers that they'll get that chance again. Okay.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you. And it's a good reminder. So I will be asking council in a minute to take a vote. The vote will be to introduce the ordinance, but that's only the first step, and it doesn't mean the ordinance has been passed. That will we'll have to wait until after the public hearing to take a final vote. I wanted to also just take a moment to thank the engineering department and thank our traffic consultant and thank Councilman Pearl-Lambros and the whole community for their engagement on this issue. When we are doing a big road project like this, it's not just like, let's get Witherspoon fixed up for 2022. I don't know actually if Deanna, like when the last time Witherspoon was done, but it's like, when we do a major road like this, we're really talking about this is going to be the major project on Witherspoon for like the next 30 to 40 years, short of, repaving in between. And so it's important for us to think about what are Main Streets going to look like in 10 years and in 20 years and in 30 years? And especially what do successful downtowns look like? And how do we make sure that, I'm just seeing here that Witherspoon was last done in around 1990, which was about 30 years ago. So, that needs to be part of our thinking here too. It's, how do we create the flexibility so that we're able to be nimble and to, make sure that we have the capacity physically to support our businesses and help them be successful. One of the problems with the two-way, which we did look at, is that it takes up so much space in that road that it takes away any flexibility to really do anything different than what's there right now. And so by shrinking it to one lane of traffic, that is going to give the engineering department that that sort of canvas to really try to think about how do we create something that meets more of the needs that we're going to have in the short term, but also in some ways, more importantly, like as we move through the next 3 decades. Anyway, I want to, again, thank everybody for sort of thinking creatively about this. It was, when we started this project, it was before COVID. And, you know, again, I think it just shows that oftentimes you don't even know what the future is going to look like. And so it helps to have something baked in where you have the flexibility to adapt. All right, are there any final comments, or is there a motion to introduce the ordinance? Moved by Ms. Pearl-Lambros, seconded by Councilwoman Mitigation. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Pearl-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
So the ordinance has been successfully introduced, and the public hearing for this ordinance will be on December 21st, 2020. And again, I know that, you know, I think we're just on we have to meet some deadlines here. If you would like to make a comment as part of the public hearing and for some reason are not able to attend that meeting, you can submit your comments by email in advance to princetoncomments@gmail.com. They just have to be received before 6:30 p.m. on December 21st. And please indicate that you're making a comment about ordinance 2020-51. Okay. So now we are back to our public hearings. And I think we're going to be setting a record here tonight for the number of public hearings that we have. So we're going to start with ordinance 2020-38, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning stormwater management regulation for major development and minor development, and amending chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And I know we had some presentation on this at our last meeting. Wanted to ask Ms. Stockton if you could review this ordinance before we open up the public hearing.
Mayor, before we start, I just want to recuse myself as an employee of the watershed, which is involved in drafting this. I have been told by legal counsel I shouldn't be here, so.
Okay, is that for both of the ordinances?
That's for both of the ordinances,
okay.
And
okay.
Someone can let me know when you're done. Thank you.
Okay, we will. Thanks, Eve.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just let me get my video back on. Okay, so tonight you have two ordinances for public hearing related to stormwater. Previously, Princeton Council in 2017 had approved a stormwater ordinance that created regulations for projects that are under the jurisdiction of the planning or zoning board, and those are defined as major projects. But Princeton also, in response to climate change and resiliency planning, had also at that time undertaken regulations for individual 1- and 2-family homes. And you'll see that in the second ordinance, the next ordinance after this one, we've renamed that type of project to small and large projects. Those are not subject to approvals from planning or zoning board, but we do review them in the engineering department. So in March of 2020, NJDEP, the Environmental Protection Group in New Jersey, had passed new regulations related to major developments. And those new regulations had a deadline to be affected by or to be put in place by municipalities, and that is March 2021. So Princeton's Flood and Stormwater Committee worked closely with the engineering department to take the new regulations, take our ordinance from 2017, and we work closely as well with our attorney's office to then create two separate ordinances, which you have tonight. One ordinance is specifically in the land use section of our code, and that's the major and minor developments. The other ordinance is for the small and large projects, and that is being moved into the zoning portion of the municipal code. So that was one step, is bifurcating our old regulations. The next step was to utilize the model ordinance that DEP had put in place with all of their new rules, and update what we have already done in Princeton. So a key component in these ordinances is that Princeton has created regulations that are stricter than the state's regulations, and that is wholly in our purview to do. We do have a lot of experiencing or a lot of flooding and other stormwater related issues in Princeton. And so these regulations are put in place to help protect our residents and their property and their safety. So major development, by the way the state defined it, looks back to 2004. So this is a big component. Previously, you just looked at the property in its state at the time of creating your development project. But with the state regulations, they've actually, while it's not a redevelopment clause, in some respects, it does help provide a little bit of a redevelopment protection, so that if somebody had a property in 2004 and then went and made changes to it up to 2021 that didn't have stormwater management, we now have that opportunity to look at those impervious surfaces that have been created within that time frame. So that, I think, will do a lot to help Princeton address our stormwater issues. We are still going to go a step further with that next year with the Flood and Stormwater Committee to see if we need to do further restrictions. But so that was one big component of these change in the regulations. The other piece with major development is Princeton has been more restrictive on the state thresholds, and what we just carried that forward. We're using the same thresholds that were in the 2017 ordinance, bringing them forward into this ordinance. Let's see, I'm trying to think of all the major components. There's a lot of reading here. I understand that. The other big one is green infrastructure. So previously, DEP and all municipalities manage stormwater or put regulations in place that allowed people to manage stormwater with manufactured devices, underground components, more structural components. And so these regulations, the state regulations, require that green infrastructure is the first line of defense for treating stormwater, for managing and treating stormwater. So instead of dry wells, which have been ubiquitous over the last 3 years, you're going to start to see more rain gardens, like you've seen pop up in various neighborhoods when homes have been updated. You're going to see smaller, like green swales. There's a whole range of options that designers can utilize, but it's utilizing plants and soil amendments to help retain stormwater, treat stormwater, infiltrate stormwater, and it's all situated so that it's closer to the point of the stormwater generation rather than at the lowest point on site as it's about to exit the site. So those are a couple of components. I'm just looking through my memo that starts on page 77 of the agenda, in case anybody that's watching wants to look at it. But the The other piece too is groundwater mounding analysis. This was another update from DEP in their requirements, as well as the minimum separation from the seasonal high groundwater table to the best management practice. So there's more detail provided in the memo. If I can clarify anything for you, I can definitely do that at this point.
Okay, well, why don't we start by opening it up if there's any questions from council, and then we'll open up the public hearing. So are there any questions for Ms. Stockton on this ordinance, or any comments before we open up the hearing? Okay, so we're going to open up the hearing on the first of these ordinances, which is 2020-38, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning stormwater management regulation for, I think I already read this, for major development and minor development and amending Chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And I see that Jim Waltman from the Watershed has his hand up, so I'd like to invite him to speak. And if there's anybody else who'd like to speak as part of this public hearing, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor Lambert and members of the council, for the opportunity to talk to you again tonight. My name is Jim Waltman and I'm the Executive Director of the Watershed Institute. We're very pleased that Princeton is addressing the critical issue of polluted stormwater runoff through the strong new municipal ordinances under consideration tonight. And I really want to commend and thank the members of the Flood and Stormwater Committee and the municipal staff for their efforts on this issue. I know there's been a lot of hard work. So increased stormwater runoff is a major result of climate change and should be considered within that context. And we're delighted that this body has taken that issue so very seriously. The greater intensity of large rainfall events that's already been experienced in New Jersey and is predicted by scientists to increase over time with additional global warming means that without bold action, the volume and severity of stormwater runoff is very likely to increase. Likewise, as land development continues in Princeton, there's less natural land for stormwater to percolate into soil as asphalt, concrete, rooftops, and other surfaces that are impervious to water are added to the landscape. Now, the state of New Jersey has adopted measures to address large new developments. These have been around since 2004, as the engineer said. But they typically look at developments that add 11,000 square feet of new impervious cover, and smaller than that, developments are generally speaking exempted. In 2017, Princeton took a very important step forward by requiring stormwater mitigation of developments of as small as 400 square feet. So this is a much stronger stance the town has taken than what is required by DEP. The proposals in front of you amend the ordinance in several important ways, including adding an explicit requirement for on-site retention of the first 1¼ inches of precipitation. So not only do new developments have to manage the stormwater, for example, slowing it down before it leaves the site, but to in fact retain a good amount of water right on the site. And the ordinance also requires consistency with DEP's green infrastructure rule, as Engineer Stockton has already mentioned, advancing a more natural features to mitigate stormwater in lieu of concrete pipes and structures and large basins. And this move, the Watershed wholeheartedly endorses. And I want to add parenthetically that we've developed several training programs on green infrastructure. We'll be having a couple of those in February, including a new one for public works departments on maintaining green infrastructure. And we'd love to have representation from Princeton as part of that. So the Watershed strongly supports the ordinance, encourages its adoptions. But I want to add briefly that in the months and years to come, there's still more work to be done. What you're doing tonight helps address the problems that will get worse from small and large developments unless they're dealt with. But to address the existing problems, the existing flooding, the existing water pollution from stormwater, Princeton will need to address developments that occurred before there were any regulation of stormwater. And there's two main ways that we hope to work with you to do this in the future. The first is to amend this ordinance in the future to require that stormwater be mitigated not only from new developments that create new impervious cover, but from redevelopments that replace existing impervious cover. And the second measure is to work on a program of literally retrofitting the landscape to add stormwater features. The conversation you had about Witherspoon Street is very exciting, and we're delighted to see thinking already about adding green infrastructure along the street to address the existing stormwater issues. There are other strategies that are possible down the road, including a stormwater utility and creating a mitigation fee that you might require of builders and homeowners in lieu of strict adherence to this ordinance, where that adherence may be particularly challenging. So that's getting, before I get too far in the weeds, let me just stop there. Thanks again for all the work that has been done on this. We're very eager to continue working with you to help Princeton implement new ordinances. And again, we're very grateful to for you to allow us to make comment along the way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. Is there anybody else who has a wants to make a comment as part of the public comment for this ordinance? We did get an email that I'm going to read. This is from Mary Joan Gaynor on Grover Avenue. I'm writing concerning the revision of the stormwater ordinance and green infrastructure requirement, which was introduced in November of this year. Thank you for acting quickly to address the state requirement. This is a step in the right direction for our town. Considering the fact that our upcoming major housing construction projects will be redevelopment as opposed to new development, I would like to point out the importance of green infrastructure in places like Thanet Drive and the Princeton Shopping Center. The use of green infrastructure such as green roof, rain gardens, and bioswales provides many documented benefits, especially in areas containing large amounts of impervious surface. In addition to temperature reduction, providing more habitat for birds and other pollinators and positively impacting the mental health, these structures slow down the flow of stormwater into our local streams as well as filter out pollutants. This will lead to mitigation of the flooding that so many of our residents are experiencing on our properties and in our neighborhoods. Please extend the green infrastructure requirement to cover redevelopment to ensure its inclusion in the imminent projects. Let's reduce impervious surfaces and better manage Princeton's water quantity and quality now. Thank you for your time and efforts. And I just wanted to see if there's any more public comment on this ordinance, and seeing none, I'm gonna, oh, I see Terry Adams.
Hi, I'm Terry Adams. I live on Wheatsheaf Lane. I've been a resident over 20 years in Princeton. And I echo what the gentleman from the watershed talked about. We've engaged a couple people from the watershed to look at ways to utilize natural planting, trees, shrubs, ground cover along Harry's Brook to try and retain the stream edges from erosion, and also to try and prevent the amount of flooding that occurs off of Harry's Brook. I think the ordinance is a step in the right direction. I walk a lot through Princeton, and some of you have seen my emails where properties are totally devoid of trees, old trees, because of, decay, and various other reasons. I'll continue to do that because I just feel like we have to continue to shout out about saving older trees and not putting in these new spindly trees that'll take many, many, many years in the future to have the effect that the older trees have on stormwater and absorption. I think these efforts are really important, and I know our neighborhood is really looking at taking on the challenge to try and mitigate some of the stormwater that really impacts our properties along Harry's Brook and on Wheatsheaf Lane. The point I want to make, in addition to thank you for moving forward with an ordinance, is the flooding from Harry's Brook is bigger than planting a 15-foot absorption level along Harry's Brook. When the rain comes, it comes in mass. And having additional trees along Harry's Brook in our yards is not going to prevent that amount of flooding that is occurring now. And someone mentioned, oh gosh, it just went out of my head. Anyway, the effect that the environment is having on flooding, I think there's got to be some looking at where is there another way to handle the flooding that occurs in downtown Princeton so that it is redirected or handled in a different way than just having it come pouring down Harry's Brook. In 20 years I've been here, it's accelerated drastically over the last 7 years. And I'll do my part in planting to help absorb some of this, but I think there's a bigger issue that starts in the town where stormwater has nowhere to go, and a lot of it gets poured and emptied into Harry's Brook. And that's another issue and a bigger problem that I think the town really ought to address at some point as well. So thank you for this evening's meeting.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak as part of the public hearing? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I have one response to each of the commenters. First to Jim, he made mention of the notion of a fee for property owners who have a difficulty with implementing the requirements of the new ordinance. And that actually is a part of this ordinance, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deanna, but didn't we put that in place for the small and large projects?
No, we were not able to include it in this version. We were still needing to discuss the legality and the logistics of doing that with our attorney.
Okay, thanks. The second commenter I wanted to address and say that while it is too late to have a redevelopment ordinance that would cover Thanet Circle, that the developer there was actually extremely cooperative, and the stormwater that will be coming off of the property at Thanet Circle post the new development or the redevelopment is actually less than would have come off of that property before any construction was done there. And that's essentially what we've talked about as the goal of a redevelopment stormwater ordinance, is to manage the water when a property is being redeveloped as though it were not being redeveloped, but was being developed new. So we did get that kind of design from the developers at Thanet. And the last thing that I wanted to mention in response to Ms. Adams was that we are looking at another undertaking in the coming years to create a municipal stormwater mitigation plan where we would have projects around the town on public property that would help to address some of our worst flooding problems in town. So again, exactly what you were asking us for. It's very much in the plans. So, oh, and I should mention, I'm the liaison to the Flood and Stormwater Committee. So that's why I had something to say about those comments.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Pearl-Lambros?
Can I just ask a question? Mary Jo from Grover asked also about the stormwater mitigation for the development on the shopping center. And I used to live across the street from Mary Jo, and she's right. She backs up to Grover Park. And we talked about this. So, David, can you clarify for me? Is this, I assume this would cover that as well, because it's not development?
The ordinance that we're passing tonight does not. The ordinance that Jim was referring to, and actually Ms. Stockton also referred to it a little elliptically in her comments, is we're working on it very much in the first half of 2021, is to put in place a redevelopment ordinance that would require developers at the shopping center to do something along the lines of what the developer at Thanet has done for their project.
Thank you. All right. I just want to make sure we clarified it, because I know we talked about it. And I just wasn't sure.
Are there any other questions or comments from council, or is there a motion to approve the ordinance? Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Pearl-Lambros. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Pearl-Lambros?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that emphatic wake you up yes. The ordinance passes unanimously. And next we come to the second stormwater ordinance, ordinance 2020-39, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning stormwater management regulation for small and large projects and amending chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And again, I'd first like to see if there's any questions from council. And seeing none, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. I know these were ordinances that fit together in a lot of ways. So, people who made a comment at the prior public hearing, you don't need to comment again if your comment's essentially the same. But I just want to keep it open for another beat in case anybody would like to speak to this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. If there's any final comments or questions, or if there's a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Williamson, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Pearl-Lambros?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
And this ordinance passes unanimously. So thank you, everybody, for the hard work on this and everybody who came to speak. Ms. Stockton?
I just wanted to let everybody know procedurally that this ordinance will be both of these ordinances will be submitted to the Mercer County Planning Department for their action. And then the idea would be that they would go into effect at the beginning of March 2021 or sooner if we pass through the Mercer County review period.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm sure there'll be more work with the Flood and Stormwater Committee about, creating some materials that we can get out to the public so that people know what's expected of them with these changes.
Yes, the engineering department has already started an email notification process to the developers and engineers that work regularly in Princeton to notify them of the changes. And at a certain point, we will be establishing a little bit of an education webinar that they can partake in as well.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and now there's going to be several ordinances that we're going to take up that have been part of the ordinance harmonization process, and want to thank the Ordinance Harmonization Committee for all of their work that's on display tonight. And I think we should just go through these. So the first is Ordinance 2020-40, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning fire insurance claims and amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and Chapter 7A of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And if there's no comments or questions from council, then I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council and ask if there's any final comments or if there's a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Niedergang and seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
This ordinance passes unanimously. Next is another harmonized ordinance, Ordinance 2020-41, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning discrimination in real property and amending Chapter 11 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and Chapter 5B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Again, are there any questions or comments from council on this? Councilman Fraga?
Yes, Mayor. I did have a question that perhaps I didn't catch it when it was first introduced, but because it does relate to the Civil Rights Commission, on section 11-5 D, that no complaint shall be filed with the commission later than 30 days after the date of the unlawful discrimination. Looking back at the rules and procedures, is this referring to the Princeton Civil Rights Commission? I'm not sure who would answer that.
I'm taking a look right now, so I can let you know. Unfortunately, I didn't draft the ordinance, so I don't have the answer for you right off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, let me say, just reading through it, it does, going back, commission to investigate and decide upon complaints. I was changed because the commission doesn't investigate complaints. Instead, that was changed to voluntary, non-binding conflict resolution of complaints, which we addressed when it was introduced. However, going back to D, when I was reviewing it again for today, where it says that no complaint shall be filed later than 30 days, the commission, I know, has been following for conflict resolution. When a complaint is received, is the 180-day window when individuals are able to file a complaint with the state. And so they've been keeping that in mind, the 180 days, and providing that information to individuals who may have a complaint. So I wasn't sure where the 30 days, where it was, because it's not in the on the ordinances that established the Civil Rights Commission, or in the policies and procedures that was approved, or it was in a resolution.
I would say, Ms. Cecil, either we can give you some time to review it now and take up the next ordinance in the meantime, or we can hold this to a future meeting if you need more time to review.
Why don't we start with the first part?
Okay.
Which is, if you can move to a different one, I'll take a look now.
Okay, so why don't we move on and we'll come back to this.
Sounds good.
So the next ordinance is Ordinance 2020-42, An ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning housing and buildings and amending Chapter 16 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and Chapters 5 and 10 of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And again, wanted to start see if there's any questions or comments from council on this. Yeah, Ms.
Sorry,
Fraga?
I do have a question again. In reviewing it, I was wondering who and I did ask it before when it was introduced about who is the rent registration board that it refers to in the ordinance.
I thought we were striking that.
There is no such board.
Right, but
That's partly why it's being taken out, I believe.
Right, but then I still saw it in section, I knew that it had been, that's why I knew that it had been taken out, but yet in the 16-60 compensation for reprisal rent increase, it still mentions the rent registration board, which I thought we had taken out. That's why.
I think that section is in brackets, which I believe
that means it's being struck.
removed.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Then I don't have any questions about it. Thank you for clarifying.
And when you get back to me on the other ordinance, that will be the answer to your other question as well. But
that was in brackets as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But we'll get back to that when we get there. But yes,
so we'll do
anything
this
in
one
brackets
and then we'll
means
go
it's
back.
coming out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So for 2020-42, I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council and ask if there's a motion to approve. Moved by Ms. Sachs, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
So ordinance 2020-42 passes unanimously, and now I'd like to go back to ordinance 2020-41.
So the answer to Councilwoman Fraga's question, that subparagraph D was from the old ordinance. It's being deleted, and instead, if you look in B, the underlined language makes it clear that it defaults now to what is in the civil rights ordinance that you guys had worked on a while back and the policies and procedures of the Civil Rights Commission. So it's not, there's no deadline or anything. That whole provision about when you have to file a complaint is actually being taken out.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I missed the brackets. I only saw the brackets on this commission to investigate, but I didn't notice it in the other part. So
yeah, I had to look twice. They're easy to miss.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that's good news. And I wanted to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council and ask if there's a motion to approve. Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Perrone-Lambros. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
So ordinance 2020-41 was unanimously approved. And now we come to ordinance 2020-43, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton requiring the provision of bicycle parking, establishing standards, therefore, and amending Articles 10, site plans, and 11, zoning, in Chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And wanted to start by asking if there are any questions or comments from council on this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. If you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand, and we'll start with Lisa Sarisol.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to extend our appreciation on behalf of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee for the consideration of this ordinance. It's been an ambition and a goal of ours for this year. We'd like to thank the extra efforts that were made by Councilman Cohen, as well as the engineering staff, and in discussions with the university regarding the extension of parking on the campus. And we look forward to the addition of bicycle parking downtown, because we know that it is in high demand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is there anybody else who'd like to speak as part of the public hearing? Please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. And Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I did refer to this upon introduction, but for anybody who wasn't present at that time, the conversations with the university, there have been some suggestions for a slightly different way to handle bike parking at institutions of higher education. The Bike Advisory Committee is very supportive, and engineering are very supportive of the changes. We just couldn't get the language whipped into shape in time to include with this. So we're intending to bring a sort of a companion revision ordinance early next year to implement those changes.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments from council on this ordinance? Or if not, is there, oh, go ahead, Ms. Sachs.
Yeah, I see Tinica, Tio in the audience, and Lisa also. They've both done a lot of work for bike parking. And Laurie Harmon also, who's not here, but who's the vice chair of the bike committee. And so special thanks to all of them for all their work on this. It's definitely needed.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Cohen. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Sachs. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Okay, so this ordinance 2020-43 has passed unanimously, and now we come to 2020-44, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton regulating speed limits on Terhune Road and amending the code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Are there any questions on this ordinance? I see Ms. Stockton. Did you want to make any comments on this before we open up the public hearing?
Sure, just it's establishing a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Terhune Road from Mount Lucas Road to Meadowbrook Drive.
Great, thank you. And are there any comments or questions on this ordinance from council? Councilman Sachs and then Councilwoman Niedergang.
Go ahead, Eve.
I was just going to thank you, Nia, for pushing this one and for, I think it's something that's been long needed, and thank you also to Ms. Stockton. But I think this is just a great idea, and I hope we can apply it in other areas of town as well. So thank you.
I was just going to say that the residents in the Terhune area have been working for almost 20 years to get this speed reduction. And it really means a lot to them to feel like they count and that their voices can be heard, and that there's not just speed reduction in areas of town where people have enough money to hire attorneys. And I think this is more than just a speed reduction. For the residents of this neighborhood, it makes them feel like they're important to the town council as well. So I'm really happy that this is going through.
Mr. Cohen?
And I think that we would be remiss as we're giving thanks if we left out Mayor Lambert, because she was really instrumental in actually getting this to happen in the waning days of her service to the town. So thank you,
Here, here.
Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is a long time coming, just to echo what everyone said. And I also want to thank, I don't think she's on the call, but Carolyn Barnshaw, who is sort of the patron saint of 25 miles an hour on Terhune Road. This is a long, long effort. And I think that it's a reflection of the fact that there are a lot of changes going on this stretch of Terhune also. And so it's not like suddenly council changed, so the speed limit changed. It's that, I think it's in recognition of there is going to be significantly more development on this stretch of road, and that we need to bring the speeds down to reflect the new nature of that roadway. So, it's one of the benefits of having some extra density, is that the extra density means that the speed limits come down. So with that, have I opened up the public hearing yet?
No.
Yes.
I can't remember it. No, I haven't. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. I'm trying to keep track here. Okay, so I would like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance to see if anybody would like to speak to it. And I see Lisa Sariasol, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mayor Lambert. This is again an initiative that has been near and dear to the hearts of the members of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. Terhune Road is one of those thoroughfares that's used as much by bicyclists and pedestrians in going to and from either the shopping center or schools or parks as vehicles. And in doing the larger Bike Boulevard route, my husband actually rides on Terhune very often. So I'm looking forward to the fact that speed is going to be reduced on this stretch of road even before the actual development takes place. And once the development is in place, it's critically important, particularly for the number of people that will be living in those units and relying on transportation that is not by a vehicle, but more either by public transit, by walking or biking. So thank you again for making this initiative a reality.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak as part of the public comment period? If you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing no one, I'd like to close the public comment and bring it back to council and ask if there's a motion to approve. Moved by Ms. Sachs, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros,
I think that's a yes.
Yes. Emphatically, yes.
Are you at home?
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Okay, this ordinance has also been unanimously approved, 2020-44. And just a follow-up question to Deanna, when would residents see the signs go up for this? Is that like about a month or?
About a month, yes. Okay. Yep, I'll be working closely with police and public works to get those in place.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next is ordinance 2020-45, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton regarding government records and administrative fees, the health department, and the Princeton Township Redevelopment Agency, and amending chapter 2 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and chapter 2 of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Again, I think we're back in the code harmonization section of our ordinances tonight, but just wanted to see if there are any questions or comments from council on this before we open up the public hearing. Ms. Fraga?
And there was more for clarification. I believe this is where I saw regarding I know it was in relation to the permit fee for parades, but I just wanted to see if we could clarify, because I know especially these past 4 years, we've had impromptu rallies in response to things happening at the national level, where groups are still expected to file a permit, but it has been very impromptu. So I was wondering if we could address that, because I know this requires a 30-day, what I was reading in the ordinance, it required a 30-day advance for the permit. Did I read that right?
I just want to make sure you're in the right ordinance. Are you 2020-45 or you want to speak to 2020-49?
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote my comments down in the wrong section. Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, hold on to that thought.
I will hold on to that. Thank you.
Okay. So for 2020-45, are there any questions or comments from council? Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance on 2020-45. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Peron-Lambros, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Peron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
And the ordinance has been unanimously approved. Now we come to 2020-46, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning advertising and banners in the public right-of-way and amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton 1974 and the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey 1968. Again, I'd like to ask council any questions. Yep, Mr. DeShield. You're muted.
Before we get started, just wanted to make a comment. We noticed there is a typo in section 7.6. It still refers to the township committee. That should be stricken. We can fix those typos, but I wanted to bring it to attention to council before you took a vote on the ordinance.
That was 47, Mark. Not 40.
Okay, I'm on the wrong ordinance?
Yes.
Sorry.
Welcome to the club.
Okay. Now I'm confused. Have we done the public hearing for this one? Not yet.
No.
Okay. So any questions from council on this, on the banners, the public right away? Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? Moved by Ms. Peron-Lambros and seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Peron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
The ordinance 2020-46 has been unanimously approved, and now we come to ordinance 2020-47, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning finance, taxation, and joint purchasing, and amending chapters 2 and 13 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and chapters 7 and 10A of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And we did just hear the comment from Mr. DeShield about the reference to Princeton Township Committee, which we can, when whoever makes a motion ultimately to approve this, we can indicate that we'll make that fix. It's not considered a substantive change that would require us to reintroduce the ordinance. But are there any other comments or questions on this before we open up the public hearing? Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. And is there a motion to approve with the changes that were noted? Moved by Ms. Peron-Lambros, seconded by Ms. Sachs. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Peron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
The ordinance passes unanimously. Next, we come to 2020-48, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning the defense, indemnification, and compensation of municipal employees and amending Chapter 11A of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and Chapter 6A and 14A of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And I'd like to ask if there's any questions or comments from council on this ordinance. I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. If you'd like to speak to this or to any of the other ordinances, please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Fraga. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen, Ms.
Yes.
Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
The ordinance passes unanimously. And now we come to ordinance 2020-49, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning parades and special events and amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And we'll start, Ms. Fraga, did you have a question on this?
Yes, well, the question, and now I'm rethinking whether it was actually in this ordinance, but it had to do with when the application needs to be filed prior for permission to hold a parade. I saw 30 days, 30-day requirements, but as I mentioned in my earlier comments, it's especially these past 4 years, we've seen a lot of impromptu rallies where I know that organizations and groups that are organizing them are still required, even though it may not be a parade per se, but still required to file a permit. But if they're impromptu, you know, it's less than 30 days. I know they're still allowed to continue even if they have not filed, you know, the proper paperwork. Our police department still works with the groups, but I was just wondering if we are addressing that in the ordinance itself.
Ms. Niedergang?
I'm just to respond to Ms. Fraga's comment, looking at the types of things that are included in this, none of them are protected by the First Amendment. So I would think a political protest would be an entirely different event. But we do have legal counsel here. It's probably better qualified than me to respond.
Yeah.
Thanks for the effort, Councilwoman Niedergang.
No, I mean, that's correct. This is really, if you look at the definitions, I mean, this is really talking about events that are planned well in advance, like walkathons. I mean, actual, you know, parades, 4th of July parades, those sorts of things. But that's not a perfect example, but that's really what it's getting at. And I think one of the key things that's in here, if you read the definition, there's a catch-all at the end: procession of any kind in any public street or sidewalk or right-of-way. So first off, it doesn't reach private properties. You're talking about the use of streets. But I think political rallies really are treated very differently. And, you know, there's a whole body of law on handling protests and rallies, and that's not this set of provisions.
And I only asked for clarification because I know for a fact that in the past, we still asked the organizers to file the paperwork so that our police department can have an idea of how large of a group is expected. Anticipate, you know, even though sometimes it's larger than it's anticipated, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. So, but I don't want people thinking that as a result of this ordinance, you can't have an impromptu rally.
And that's what I wanted to clarify. You know, I wanted it for us to clarify.
Yeah, I think with a lot of what the work of the ordinance harmonization group is that it was really taking what was existing and putting it into one place. So, I think if this is an area that people want to take another look at, I think you could go back and change the times if that's what's decided. But the point of this ordinance harmonization is to have that single code book to make it easier for people to navigate.
Okay.
And I think it is an important point that, our, the municipal staff pretty much across the board, it's, we're here to serve the public. And I think people are willing to try to make things work for folks within reason. So, but we want to have that protection there too. So you don't have people coming in at the last minute.
Right.
To do the walkathon or to do the running race or whatever it is. It's like those things take a lot of time to plan to make sure that, you can close down streets and that you have the traffic protection that's needed.
Great.
And I just want to point out, there's also an explicit exception in here that does allow the clerk to consider applications that are filed less than 30 days before the event for good cause shown. I mean, there's a lot of protections built in.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for addressing that.
Thanks. If there's no other questions or comments from council, I'd like to open up the public hearing on this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
And I just want to take a moment and thank the Code Harmonization Committee. As much work as it was to just get through all of those ordinances at the meeting tonight, you can only imagine. For each of these ordinances, the hours of legal work and just sort of combing through and making sure that we're putting together the best of both worlds is pretty painstaking and not always the most totally thrilling policy work that someone can volunteer for. So I do want to thank the Councilman Sachs and Councilman Cohen for their work on this, and also Councilman Perone-Lambros for jumping in too. So
I haven't done anything yet.
okay, well,
we really couldn't get very far without our attorneys, Ms. Cecile and
yeah, exactly.
She's not here tonight, but they've done really the yeoman's effort there.
I couldn't get very
Maddox has
far.
been the
Yeah, I couldn't get
champion.
very far without Lisa Maddox either.
Yeah, I think if the code book has like a acknowledgements page, it's Lisa should get some credit there. And this has been a long project, so I do want to thank everybody who's worked on it so far, and thanks to folks in advance who are going to be jumping in. Okay, final ordinance public hearing tonight is 2020-50, an ordinance of the Mayor and Council of Princeton concerning salaries and compensation of certain personnel of the municipality of Princeton, and wanted to ask if there are any questions or comments from council before we open up the public hearing. I'd like to open up the public hearing, and if you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your virtual hand. And seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council and ask if there's a motion to approve. Moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Perone-Lambros. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
The ordinance 2020-50 passes unanimously. My earbuds just ran out.
So now we're back to the section for.
And we've already done the first one. So now we come to 2020-52, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton amending section 2215 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, to exclude indoor gyms and fitness facilities from the limitations on hours of operation applicable to businesses in residential zones and on properties abutting residential zones. And I don't know if Ms. Cecil, you wanted to comment on this. Really, it's just making an exception in the hours of operations ordinance to allow for 24-hour gyms.
Correct. Yeah, it was triggered
So,
actually. There's a prospective tenant. I think that's, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this, what the catalyst was, there's the space where New York Sports Club used to be at the shopping center is vacant, and there's a prospective tenant, but their model is to operate on a 24-hour basis. And because of our current hours of operation ordinance, the shopping center is all one lot and it borders on residential zones. So that would have absolutely blocked that use. And in reviewing this with staff and with the mayor, if you go back and you look at the purposes that are articulated for having those limitations, it's felt like these gyms don't create the same types of problems that the ordinance is aimed at fixing. And so it made sense, and our recommendation was to just create an exception so that they're not subject to those limitations on the hours of operation.
Ms. Brown-Lambros?
I just want to thank you to Ms. Waterbury Cecil and to Derek and the staff for bringing this up to us. I mean, you could have easily just said no, and I think it's really important in these times that we're thinking of all options. So I appreciate your bringing it forward. Thank you.
Ms. Sachs?
And I would also like to thank the staff. This is the first I'm hearing of it. And since I live near the shopping center, this is a great opportunity to get rid of my COVID, literally 19 pounds. So this is a really exciting thing. Good work.
Ms. Niedergang?
I just want to echo what my colleagues have said, that I just find it really heartening that we're looking for ways to accommodate requests and respond positively. I just, not that, I don't mean that in any negative way, but it just, as was said, it's far easier often to say no. So I really appreciate that everybody is looking for ways to say yes and to encourage our businesses and to think out of the box a bit. So thank you all who were involved.
Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to introduce? Moved by Ms. Perrin-Lambros, seconded by Ms. Niedergang, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrin-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
And the public hearing for this will be on December 21st, 2020. Next is ordinance 2020-53, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton increasing the FAR limitation in the SC Shopping Center District and amending the schedule of zoning regulations in section 10B 246 of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And this is sort of paired with some of these other ordinances to follow.
Sure.
But
And I
just wanted to ask maybe Ms. Cecil, if you can walk us through
the
whole group of them now, and then we can take them one at a time.
Absolutely. Yeah, because all three, this one, ordinance 2020-54 and 2020-55 are all related. And it's really 2020-55 is kind of the trigger for the other two. But there's an option, there's a developer who has an option on the Comfort site, which is the parcel Terhune and North Harrison that abuts the shopping center. And they have an option to purchase a little sliver in the northeast corner of the shopping center parcel. So one of the three ordinances would be to adjust the boundary line, because the Comfort site is in the AH5 zone. The shopping center obviously is in the shopping center zone. But if that little parcel of the shopping center is consolidated with the Comfort site, that has an impact then on the FAR calculations and the residential density calculations on the shopping center site. So the purpose of 53 And 54 is to address those impacts. So 53 would increase the permissible floor area ratio for non-residential development on the shopping center site. And then 2020-54 will increase the limitation on the residential density on the shopping center site, but it doesn't increase the yield. It's just currently the ordinance provides for 7 dwelling units to the acre. This would modify it to 7.5. Again, the overall yield doesn't change. It's changing a calculation within the ordinance to ensure that the developer can get to the overall yield that was anticipated at the shopping center. I don't know if that made it more confusing or less confusing, but basically you've got a potential
That was helpful,
subdivision.
Tricia. That was great.
That'll
That's
shift
great.
it'll shrink
Yeah.
the size of the shopping center. That triggers then the need for these 3 separate ordinances.
Are there any further questions or comments on this? And if not, is there a motion to introduce? Moved by Ms. Perrin-Lambros, seconded by Mr. Cohen. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
This ordinance has been introduced and the public hearing will be on December 21st, 2020. Next, the ordinance, and I think I mentioned it before, but just in case I didn't, the public hearing for the gyms ordinance will also be on December 21st, 2020. Next is 2020-54, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton amending ordinance number 2020-21 to increase the maximum permitted density in the AH05 Affordable Housing Overlay 5 zoning district from 7 dwelling units per acre to 7.5 dwelling units per acre. And is there a motion to introduce this ordinance? Mr. Cohen? And seconded by Ms. Perrin-Lambros. Any further comment or question on this? And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
And the public hearing for this ordinance will be on December 21st, 2020. And finally, we have ordinance 2020-55, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton modifying the zone boundary line between the SC Shopping Center District and the AH5 Affordable Housing District and amending the zoning map of the Township of Princeton. Is there a motion to introduce this ordinance? Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Perrin-Lambros. Any questions or comments? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
And this ordinance has also been successfully introduced unanimously, and the public hearing will be on December 21st, 2020. And now we come to the consent agenda, which tonight only contains 1 item. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve, moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, the consent agenda passes unanimously. And is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Perrin-Lambros. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the meeting is adjourned, and I want to thank everybody who stuck it out till the end with us here tonight. And we will see you back on Monday night, the 14th. And wishing everybody a happy and healthy week. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Aye.
Good
Good
night,
night.
Great
Good
night, everyone.
night.